world's worst delinquents gather in one high school. How many days could you survive? This man is called Da-jun. On this day, what he's writing on his desk isn't homework, but his own suicide note, because he's been targeted by the delinquents in his class. This delinquent gang led by Do-yeon Lee bullies Da-jun every day. Their methods are extremely cruel. Even the teachers mock Da-jun's miserable state every day. Finally, he finished writing his suicide note, recording all of Do-yeon Lee's crimes, just thinking about that day at his funeral. When Do-yeon Lee gets arrested by the police, Da-jun can't help but snicker to himself. Da-jun returns home, planning to say his final goodbye to his family, but just as he's about to speak, suddenly his father says first, "You're blocking my view of the TV." At that moment, the TV is broadcasting a major murder case, and the perpetrator is actually a high school student. Da-jun is also drawn to the content on TV, because this high school student also suffered from severe school bullying. He couldn't take it anymore, and killed those 7 delinquents. This man tells the reporter, "Don't preach kindness to others without knowing they're suffering. You have no idea how terrifying those guys were. If anyone watching TV is being bullied, remember this. They're the ones who should disappear." These few words pierce deep into Da-jun's heart. He stares as if seeing a divine revelation, while his father dismissively says, "That guy must be crazy. No matter how much you're bullied, it doesn't justify killing people." At this moment, Da-jun feels as if he's at the crime scene. His hands can't help but applaud. That night, Da-jun's mind is in turmoil. On one hand, he fantasizes about killing Do-yeon Lee and his gang in revenge. On the other hand, he fears ending up like the person on TV, behind bars. This feeling is like being stabbed by 10,000 needles, both itchy and painful. But if he does nothing, he'll eventually be beaten to death by those delinquents. Then Da-jun finds a sharp awl, drives it deep into his pillow, muttering, "I'm not the one who should disappear, but plans can't keep up with changes." The next day, when Da-jun faces Do-yeon Lee again, he's so scared he can't even hold the AWL he prepared. Because Da-jun has been beaten for so long, that just seeing Do-yeon Lee's face triggers a reflexive fear response. His whole body tenses up, limbs going stiff. In panic, Da-jun can only hide the awl in his drawer. After school, Do-yeon Lee drags Da-jun to an abandoned construction site, claiming he prepared a birthday cake for Da-jun. But the next second, a mixture of spit and sock water, Do-yeon Lee actually hands him, forcing Da-jun to drink it. The slightest hint of refusal from Da-jun earns him a slap from Do-yeon Lee. Da-jun looks at the filthy liquid in front of him. This would completely crush his last shred of dignity. But now he's outnumbered, and fighting back would surely fail. Right now, Da-jun can only wait for the right moment. Da-jun grits his teeth and pours the cup into his mouth. The violent nausea almost makes him faint, while Do-yeon Lee's gang drinks beer nearby, until evening, when the others go home. Do-yeon Lee picks up the unconscious Da-jun. At this moment, Da-jun's consciousness gradually awakens. Just then, Da-jun breaks free from Do-yeon Lee's grip, and runs frantically toward the street. But after just a few steps, Do-yeon Lee catches up. Then comes a series of punches. Da-jun's pupils gradually lose their light, and deep in his consciousness, that man tells Da-jun, he's the one who should die, not you. At this moment, a truck comes around the corner. Da-jun's eyes suddenly open. This is his chance. He pushes hard with both hands. The truck crashes into Do-yeon Lee at full speed, and the nausea that had been carved into Da-jun's heart instantly disappears. What he drank that day wasn't filthy liquid, but his unbearable past. But the next second, Da-jun regrets it. Going to prison for life over scum like Do-yeon Lee just isn't worth it. At this moment, Da-jun's heart feels like it's crawling with 100,000 ants, making him both itchy and stinging with pain. Time comes to the next day. Da-jun nervously walks into school. He imagines that, on the other side of the classroom door, there might already be heavy security waiting to arrest him. But when Da-jun pushes open the door, he finds the classroom scene is almost the same as usual. The only change is that Do-yeon Lee's seat in the back row is empty. After morning reading, the teacher announces Do-yeon Lee's car accident. The class is immediately filled with various discussions. At this moment, a fat classmate points at Da-jun and says, "You pushed Do-yeon Lee into that truck, didn't you? I saw you two walking together yesterday." These words immediately make Da-jun tense up and break out in cold sweat. Before Da-jun can respond, another classmate quickly pulls the fat kid away, saying, "Sorry, he was just joking." Then turns and whispers to the fat kid, "Da-jun is just a coward. He doesn't have that kind of guts." Seeing this, Da-jun breathes a sigh of relief. Because in his classmate's perception, he's just a wimp who doesn't dare cause trouble. Da-jun discovers that after Do-yeon Lee's disappearance, the classroom becomes so quiet. Even the usually bullied students aren't as nervous anymore. This is also the first time Da-jun experiences normal student life. Tears can't stop flowing down. He thinks to himself that maybe he did a good thing. Then just as Da-jun is contentedly looking out the window, he suddenly notices police cars parked downstairs. The next second, a student outside shouts, "Da-jun, the homeroom teacher wants you in the office. His worst fear has happened. Dajun is arrested. But fortunately, the police found the suicide note Dajun had written and the surveillance video from the incident, which recorded all of Doyon Lee's evil deeds. This saves Dajun from prison, but he's given a 2-year probation sentence. Afterward, Dajun also faces investigation by the school committee. He gets expelled from school. Dajun walks dejectedly through the hallway, looking at the surrounding students. The atmosphere is filled with mockery and disgust. Whatever, how disgusting. Finally, he doesn't have to face these filthy faces anymore. But the last straw that breaks the camel's back isn't school but his family. After returning home, Dajun kneels before his father. But no matter what he says, his father won't let Dajun step foot in the house. As he wished then, Dajun slams the door and leaves, walking alone on the street in heavy rain. Tears mix with rainwater. Now Dajun has lost everything, but misfortune keeps coming. Doyon Lee's lackeys find Dajun. They all have dark faces and fierce expressions. But this time, Dajun has nothing left to care about. Whatever demons you are, bring it on. They surround him and assault him. And facing such an overwhelming attack, Dajun has no power to fight back. Then the watermelon head guy steps on Dajun and says, "I'm accepting your apology on behalf of Doyon Lee. Beg me like a dog." These few words strike right at Dajun's heart. Dajun retorts, "You want me to apologize to Doyon Lee? He pushed me off cliffs hundreds of times. If you were me, you would have broken down long ago." Dajun roars at Watermelon Head, "You bastards, don't preach kindness without knowing others' suffering." His emotions intensify. Dajun immediately grabs a brick nearby and swings it hard at Watermelon Head. Watermelon Head falls down. The others are shocked by Dajun's counterattack. At this moment, Dajun realizes he doesn't need to feel guilty about scum anymore. If he wants to escape these trash and survive, he must eliminate them. The next second, the others charge with wooden sticks. But now Dajun is no longer afraid. He fights back fiercely. But ultimately he's outnumbered, and when Dajun's strength runs out, 2 men grab him. The crew cut leader says, "You crazy bastard, believe it or not, I'll gouge your eyes out." As he speaks, the crew cut man actually jabs with his stick. But at this moment, a voice makes the crew cut man stop, and everyone looks behind them. "What are you people doing at my house? I want to eat, please leave," the man says impatiently while holding instant noodles. Hearing this, the crew cut man laughs loudly. "What homeless kid is this? Just get lost obediently." Then the wolf cut man says, "I'm not joking. The bricks here are my pillow, this is my home." Then the purple-haired man walks up to that man with a wooden stick, saying, "If you're smart, you'll get lost now." It seems the man turns to leave, but it's actually a feint. Just as the purple-haired man gets cocky, a bowl of instant noodles flies over, followed immediately by a flying kick. Everyone is completely stunned. The next second, the man nimbly dodges all attacks and delivers a series of punches with no expression. In less than half a minute, he knocks everyone to the ground. Moonlight shines on the man's face, making him look so striking. The crew cut man kneels on the ground crying and begging for mercy, while Dajun witnesses everything. If only he could be like this man, how amazing that would be. After that group escapes, Dajun expresses his gratitude to the man. This is the first time in years someone has helped him. But the man is heartbroken over his instant noodles, paying no attention to Dajun. "I want to ask you for a favor. Can you make me as strong as you? I want to survive on these streets," Dajun says quietly. The naturally agile man pushes Dajun away, saying, "I didn't help you at all. You should leave my home too." Seeing this, Dajun quickly raises both hands to show he means no harm, saying, "Wait, let me buy you some instant noodles first." At this moment, Dajun doesn't know that this man will change the trajectory of his life. The man takes the instant noodles and listens to Dajun's life story while sighing. "To survive being tortured by those delinquents for nearly 2 years, I really admire you." The two chat happily. This is the first time in so long that Dajun has an equal conversation with someone. He never expected this wolf-cut man to be so cheerful, completely different from when he was fighting. But the next second makes Dajun despair again. The man says, "I won't teach you to fight because you have no potential at all. Like a hothouse flower, you've lived too ordinary a life. The streets aren't for you." No matter how much Dajun pleads after that, the wolf-cut man pays no more attention. The next day, Dajun secretly follows behind the man, observing his every move. He wants to start with the man's lifestyle habits, step by step imitating his appearance. He copies the man rummaging through recycling bins for old clothes, but ends up putting on an oversized pajama top. He copies the man stealing canned food meant for stray cats by kind people, but gets chased half a block by the house cat's owner, wherever the man sleeps. Dajun follows suit. Finally, the wolf-cut man can't stand it anymore and says, "How long are you going to follow me? I can teach you fighting techniques." Dajun's eyes immediately widen. "But first you need to beat up that guy." The man points in a direction. It's the purple-haired man who bullied Dajun yesterday. As it gets dark, Dajun follows behind the man, listening carefully. The man says, "What you did before was just a sheep's struggle. just self-preservation when pushed to the brink. Now you need to learn to think from those guys' perspective. These few words are etched in Dajun's heart. This is exactly what he's been confused about. Just then, the purple-haired man is hysterically talking on the phone, while Dajun crouches on the wall like a cheetah, waiting for his moment. Dajun looks at the purple-haired man. Can't help but recall the scenes of being bullied by him. The purple-haired man, being a baseball team member, often relied on his great strength to bully Dajun. And now is the chance for revenge. Dajun suddenly jumps down from the wall. A flying kick directly stuns the purple-haired man. However, just as Dajun is secretly pleased, the next second, the purple-haired man suddenly gets up and punches Dajun hard. The purple-haired man says disdainfully, "I wondered who it was. Turns out it's soft, Dajun. I wasn't done playing yesterday, and conveniently you've come looking for me today." Then the purple-haired man kicks Dajun to the ground. The wolf-cut man watches expressionlessly. The next second, Dajun grabs a garbage bag nearby and throws it at the purple-haired man, and as the garbage scatters, Dajun charges out, grabbing the purple-haired man in a bear hug. But the purple-haired man's strong physique immediately pins Dajun against the wall corner, and Dajun shows no intention of dodging, using a two-finger Zen technique. The scene before him is so familiar to the wolf-cut man. Dajun's every move is exactly what he used to beat up that group yesterday, but none of Dajun's imitated moves look proper, and now his two-finger Zen is firmly caught by the purple-haired man. Learning and using techniques on the spot really isn't reliable, but he shows no trace of fear. Facing the overwhelming power difference, Dajun falls into a passive position again. The wolf-cut man watching sees Dajun has no chance of winning in size. However, just as he's about to give up on Dajun and turn to leave, the purple-haired man suddenly becomes nervous because something sharp is pressing against his waist. This cold sensation feels like a sharp knife. The more afraid the purple-haired man becomes, the more excited Dajun gets, because he knows what's wrapped in the newspaper is actually a steel ruler. The wolf-cut man is once again attracted by the unfolding reversal. The purple-haired man doesn't dare resist, and Dajun takes the opportunity to kick him hard several times. Because in the purple-haired man's view, Dajun now seems even crazier than he imagined, with no rationality at all. The purple-haired man runs into a dead-end alley, gasping heavily. "Please stop hitting me." Hearing these words, Dajun's offensive becomes even more fierce. "You want me to stop? Do you know how I've spent these 2 years? Haven't I been bullied by you enough times?" The next second, the purple-haired man seizes the moment when Dajun hesitates, grabs Dajun's wrist with his backhand, takes away the blade in Dajun's hand, and swings it hard toward his thigh. But the blade doesn't even pierce Dajun's pants. The newspaper falls and Dajun says, "I won't be scared by a steel ruler." The wolf-cut man's lips curl up slightly. This kid is really interesting. The enraged purple-haired man unleashes a barrage of attacks on Dajun. The next second, a warm stream flows down from his head. The wolf-cut man has made his move. Before the purple hair can react, he's kicked unconscious. Then he says to Dajun, "Do you really want to become strong that badly? Even beaten up like this, you still want to?" Dajun nods firmly. "Alright, I'll give you one last chance, but it'll be much harder than this time." Late at night, the two shuttle through alleys. The wolf-cut man introduces himself to Dajun. His name is Hangil Joe, and he tells Dajun this neighborhood is much more dangerous than he imagines. If you want to live here, you have to blend in with them first. Then Hangil pushes Dajun into a dim room, adding, "This is my last chance for you. Try to survive here." After Dajun turns around, in the shadowy light, he sees an extremely burly man standing behind him. Then Dajun explains the situation to everyone. The three can't help but ask, "Who decided that wanting to learn to fight means you have to live here?" Dajun says, "Hangil Joe told me to do this." The red-haired man named Dayup Cha thinks that since Hangil brought him, it wouldn't be appropriate to kick him out. The person nearby also says, "It's too late. Let him sleep here for one night." Dayup shows Dajun around, pointing at the washing machine with a big smile. "You'll sleep here tonight, no need to thank me." In the following days, Dajun takes on all the household chores. Although it's tiring, at least this place lets Dajun rest without getting beaten. They eat barbecue as a group. Dajun eats canned food and white rice. During the day, Dajun wanders outside and discovers that seemingly all the thugs in the world have gathered in this neighborhood. Just as Dajun is passing by while shopping for groceries, a thug targets Dajun, provocatively saying to Dajun, "Kid, you were just checking out my girlfriend, weren't you? Kowtow and apologize now and I'll let you off." Dajun remembers Hangil Joe's words, surviving in this area. Then Dajun puts down his shopping bag and prepares to face him head-on. But the next second, the small-time thug freezes, because a broad shoulder appears behind Dajun, and Dayup says disdainfully, "What are you doing to my lackey?" He pushes away that thug, then turns to complain to Dajun, "After you buy groceries, hurry home and cook. Chatting with this kind of guy is too embarrassing." At this moment, Dajun never expected that Dayup, who usually loves to bully him, is now protecting him. The fat guy nearby whispers to the thug, "You should just bear it. That red hair is from Hangul-jo's crew, just forget about this." But the thug is completely stubborn, raising his knife and charging at Dayup from behind. But the next second, Dayup grabs the knife with his backhand and throws him to the ground with one hand. Everyone is shocked by Dayup's incredible strength. At this moment, Dayup looks like a killing god, saying, "The rest of you can come at me together." The other two don't care about the thug on the ground and run away scared. Dajun watches everything happening before him, wondering when he'll be able to stand on his own. After the thug wakes up, he angrily bangs on the iron gate and shouts, "Dayup Cha, that bastard, wait for me! I'll definitely take down Hangul-jo's whole crew." Just then, a deep voice from the alley entrance catches everyone's attention. "You want to deal with Hangul-jo's crew? How about I help you?" The man in the shadows says wickedly. The thug looks at that man in horror. It's actually him. Time comes to several days later at night. Dayup's group is deep in sleep, while the thug nervously observes the situation inside the house. The next second, he actually opens the gas tank valve, extending the tube toward the door crack. But at this time, Dajun is still living in his laundry room, just as he's about to open the door to go to the bathroom. Dajun smells a strange odor. He immediately realizes this smell is wrong. Dayup and the others have already fainted. Dajun's first reaction is to ventilate. He hurriedly pushes open the front door, but happens to knock over the thug crouching outside. The thug looks at Dajun in confusion, thinking it's this damn kid again. The thug immediately turns and runs. Now with everyone in the house unconscious, Dajun can only chase after him alone. Now Dajun also wants to make a contribution to prove his worth to Dayup. After some time, the air in the house gradually circulates. Dayup wakes up and pulls everyone outside. The thug is now gasping and saying, "Kid, you really have stamina, chasing me this long without giving up." While on the stairs, Dajun says excitedly, "All I want to do now is get rid of trash like you." It turns out that 2 days before the incident, Dajun had been begging Dayup to teach him fighting techniques. However, Dayup didn't take it seriously. Even jokingly said to Dajun, "I can jump rope 100,000 times a day, can you do that?" But 10 hours later, the scene before him leaves Dayup stunned. This kid is actually still jumping. He took Dayup's joke seriously. Anyone can look down on the weak's abilities, but never doubt their determination to become strong. At this moment, Dajun and the thug are fighting. No matter how the thug attacks Dajun, Dajun never feels fear or retreats even half a step, while the thug in the baseball cap becomes increasingly nervous, because he knows that before being caught by that guy, he must escape this place immediately. If this mission fails, he'll definitely become a target for elimination by the organization. However, just as he's about to run, Dajun sticks to him like adhesive plaster, grabbing his pant leg. The thug loses balance and rolls down the stairs. Dajun takes the opportunity to grab the fallen thug and shouts, "Don't even think about escaping." But the next second, a flash of silver passes by his face. Blood flows down his cheek. The thug holds up his knife with a vicious expression, saying, "Damn kid, if you're smart you'll get lost now." Seeing that Dajun shows no intention of retreating, the thug starts swinging his knife. Unarmed Dajun can only dodge and keep retreating. This kind of desperate criminal has no restraint in his attacks. Just as Dajun's makeshift shield gets cut through, the knife is approaching his waist. On the other side, Dayup and the others wake up from the gas poisoning. T. Kim asks, "Where did Dajun go? Did he save us?" Dayup replies, "He went to catch the guy who tried to harm us." Hearing this, T. Kim says in surprise, "That kid doesn't even know how to throw a punch. Where does he get the courage?" Dayup says calmly, "That kid has a crazy streak. It definitely won't be the outcome you're thinking. Because I promised him that if he catches that person, I'll teach him street fighting." The perspective returns to this side. Dajun actually catches the knife with his bare hands, making the thug lose control of the blade. Dajun says to the thug, "Now it's my turn, right?" Dajun's feet push off hard, pinning the thug heavily against the railing. He looks at Dajun in shock. "What are you trying to do? You think your immature techniques can take me down?" At this moment, Dajun's adrenaline is pumping at maximum. He smiles at the thug. "I never plan to take you down." Then Dajun grabs the thug's sleeve and kicks hard at his heel. Both lose balance and flip over the railing. The 3-meter-high slope makes the thug unable to control his body. The knife bounces off the wall and flies away. Then both crash heavily to the ground. Dajun struggles to get up, just as he picks up a rock to give the thug the final blow. He discovers that the thug hit his head on a stone pillar and is now unconscious. Dajun wins. This is the first time in his life he experiences the feeling of victory. But as the adrenaline slowly fades, Dajun feels pain in his abdomen. That knife had somehow stabbed into Dajun. 2 days later, Dajun wakes up to find himself in a hospital. It turns out that when he fainted, Dayup and the others arrived just in time, sending him to the hospital and saving his life. But when they found Dajun, there was no trace of the thug nearby. Dayup unusually chats and jokes with Dajun, Teak Kim also admires Dajun's brave performance, saying he's worthy of being someone Hangul brought. Then the sound of a door opening interrupts their conversation. Wolf-cut Hangul Jo arrives, saying to Dajun, "Ready to learn real fighting techniques with me? If you want to run away, there's still time." A few days after being discharged, the runaway from home crew members make delicious food for Dajun to show their gratitude. Seeing Dajun wolfing down his food, Dayup Cha can't help but scratch his head, muttering, "If others saw this, they'd think we don't feed you." Dajun starts sobbing. The others nearby comfort Dajun. After all, everyone present is a runaway, so how could they quickly accept Dajun, this unexpected guest? After the others share their own hardships with Dajun, they actually understand better than Dajun how difficult life on the outside is. Learning all this, Dajun also becomes enlightened. Afterward, Dajun's life begins to change dramatically. First, he no longer has to sleep in the laundry room, and he doesn't have to be constrained when getting along with the runaway from home crew members. He just didn't expect them to be around the same age as him, with only Hangul Jo being 2 years older than him, followed by Teak Kim and Seong Bin Ha, and surprisingly, Dayup Cha and Gayong Hong are the same age as him. Now Dajun no longer has to do the previous household chores. The others are also busy with their part-time jobs, looking at this guy who lies on the ground every day, constantly yawning, and then feeds him big dreams. It seems Dajun's life has really gotten on track, hasn't it? Then Dajun gets kicked out of the house by Dayup Cha. Dajun is told that if he wants to continue staying with the runaway from home crew, he needs to go out and earn money properly, then find time to learn fighting. Fortunately, Teak Kim introduces Dajun to a job at a pizza shop. It's here that Dajun meets the most important girl in his life, Na-eun, who is also the shop owner's daughter. Faced with her appearance, Dajun's heart immediately starts racing. Just meeting her, she compliments him as so cute. Having never been praised by a girl, how can Dajun handle this? He's immediately smitten. This day, while Na-eun is working, she simply reminds a customer smoking isn't allowed here, and gets a coffee thrown all over her. Seeing his beloved girl humiliated like this, how can Dajun stand it? Just as he's about to rush up and teach that man a lesson, he's stopped by the shop owner, who then apologizes together with Na-eun. Dajun is very confused. Why do they have to be so tolerant of such unreasonable customers? "Dajun, do you want my shop to close down?" Then the shop owner starts explaining earnestly. In this neighborhood, there's a dangerous organization that ordinary people can't identify. So when we usually encounter such unreasonable customers, we have to be careful, because he might be someone sent by that organization. Before this, countless shop owners like me have disappeared just for making them feel uncomfortable. It's all because I'm too incompetent. What man wants to see his daughter humiliated like this as a father? So I can only choose to swallow my anger. Facing Dajun's good intentions isn't Na-eun the same way? Looking at this girl his age, Dajun can't help but feel she's much more mature than him, and life here is much harder than he imagined. Returning to the runaway from home crew, Dajun finally begins his hellish training. First is running 100,000 kilometers, 100,000 jump ropes, then push-ups, squats, and sit-ups. Finally, there's a strange footwork pattern. Looking at Hangul Jo constantly grinning stupidly, Dajun mutters to himself, "Is this guy seriously teaching me?" Then Dajun asks him, "Is there a foolproof method to win fights?" But he tells Dajun that he's actually already taught him, like using the surrounding environment to block the opponent's movement, causing visual damage to the opponent. Then using the surrounding environment to find handy tools. But thinking of Dajun's poor performance, after all, judgment can't be trained. After hearing all this, Dajun takes out his phone and says, "I also want to use martial arts like the guys on screen." But what comes at him is a big slap from Hangul Jo. Just then, Dajun instinctively takes a step back and dodges it. Seeing this scene, Hangul Jo is also surprised. Then he conducts a series of tests. Seeing that Dajun can actually dodge his attacks, he has some confidence in him. So he says, "Alright, I'll teach you. Of course, I must teach you properly with fists, because only after experiencing it firsthand can you become more skilled in combat." As for how brutal the following scenes are, friends can imagine for themselves how miserable it was. A few days later, Dajun prepares to go to his part-time job at the pizza shop again. But the next second, the sound of breaking glass catches his attention, and he looks toward the pizza shop. He sees a guy with a square head lifting up the shop owner with one hand, constantly saying, "Uncle, aren't you close with Teak Kim? Don't you know where he went?" And keeps asking someone on the phone, "Is this really the place?" Seeing Dajun watching everything at the door, he glares angrily and tells Dajun to get lost. Seeing this scene, how can Dajun still bear it? Before, he was stopped by the shop owner, but when such things happen again and again, who could tolerate it? Dajun immediately started by throwing a bottle at him. Dajun grabbed the bottle and hurled it at that fat-headed guy, but unfortunately, Taeyang Kim nimbly dodged it. Dajun never expected that Taeyang Kim, once a school bully, had such a robust physique. What looked like a body full of fat was actually all muscle. From then on, Taeyang Kim took full advantage of his physical condition to run rampant in school. doing whatever he pleased. This was also why he got expelled from school. After all, no one dared to defy him. However, that was only limited to within the school grounds. His only nemesis was Ji Young-cheon, whom he encountered outside school. And the reason he came to cause trouble at the shop this time was also because of his orders. Now he felt very speechless. Because except for that man, this was the first time he encountered such an absurd situation. He felt that Dajun in front of him was like a fearless little dog barking at him. Dajun also looked at the person in front of him, well aware of his own strengths and weaknesses. With Dajun's shout of "you fat pig," Taeyang Kim could no longer endure it. Looking at Taeyang Kim charging at him, Dajun's mind immediately flashed back to the moves Hang Il-jojo had taught him before. With a kick, he sent the chair flying toward Taeyang Kim. Due to his massive size, Taeyang Kim wasn't knocked down by the chair, recalling the boxing techniques Hang Il-jojo had taught him before. Dajun threw a jab at Taeyang Kim. Taeyang Kim was also left confused by this hit. Then Dajun used his footwork to concentrate his strength, followed by a straight hook punch aimed at Taeyang Kim's face. Dajun thought he had landed the hit and could at least cause some damage to his opponent. But Taeyang Kim acted like nothing had happened. The next second he launched an attack on Dajun saying, "Looking at how you dodge, you must have learned some boxing techniques. But judging by your moves, you haven't really learned how to fight." Looking at the guy attacking him again, Dajun knew he couldn't get hit, or the difference in strength would immediately show. But unfortunately, his opponent was extremely tough to beat. Even though Dajun landed countless punches on him, he still showed no signs of going down. Seeing himself being pushed into a corner by this guy step by step, Dajun also felt that something was not good. The next second, he was grabbed by Taeyang Kim, who landed a straight punch on him. Facing such a heavy opponent, was there really no hope left for Dajun? Taeyang Kim grabbed Dajun's neck with both hands and lifted him up. Fortunately, Na-eun came over to interfere, making him let his guard down. Na-eun was immediately knocked to the ground with one punch. At this life-or-death moment, Dajun again thought of the previous techniques, blocking the vision. The next second, Dajun used all his strength to execute the Dragon King's Spitz water move. Taeyang Kim was immediately left crying from this technique. Seeing such an opportunity in front of him, how could Dajun hesitate? The next second, he threw another straight punch at Taeyang Kim. Then Dajun grabbed a bottle nearby, and combined it with a straight punch to hit Taeyang Kim. Even the extremely tough Taeyang Kim couldn't quite handle this. Looking at Dajun in front of him, Taeyang Kim finally realized this guy was a lunatic. Under Dajun's relentless punches, even the tough Taeyang Kim couldn't endure it anymore. Looking at Dajun in front of him, Na-eun kept calling for him to stop. With blood on his hands, he still kept attacking Taeyang Kim relentlessly, until the opponent fell down. Seeing this scene, the shop owner was also stunned. But just as Dajun collapsed to the ground in exhaustion, two people actually walked toward them. Seeing Taeyang Kim lying on the ground after searching for so long, the two thought it was the shop owner who had beaten Taeyang Kim down. They were about to call out the shop owner to fight them. But the next second, Dajun stood up again, saying, "Scum like you can come as many as you want, it doesn't matter. Come at me together." Seeing the crazy Dajun in front of them, suddenly, a fierce punch flew toward the two men, and they were immediately knocked to the ground. The appearance of Taek Kim completely bewildered the two. Taek Kim, whom Taeyang Kim had been searching for, had actually appeared. Seeing the chaotic pizza shop in front of him, and the beaten father and daughter, Taek Kim's anger also flared up. Taek Kim tied up his hair and said, "You've worked hard, Dajun. I'll handle the rest." Then he looked at the two men in front of him and said, "Which one of you wants to meet God first?" Hearing this, the two men immediately charged at Taek Kim. Facing the two attackers, Taek Kim simply raised his hand and threw a straight punch. One of them was instantly knocked down. Then with a kick, the other attacker's head immediately started ringing. Dajun watched Taek Kim's fluid movements and couldn't help but admire how amazing it was. Under Taek Kim's questioning, he learned that both the previous gas leak incident and this shop smashing incident were all ordered by Ji Young-cheon. After learning this, Taek Kim kicked both men down with one foot. Looking at the two men lying on the ground, Taek Kim said, "It's definitely Haegwang's doing." Dajun couldn't help but ask what Haegwang was and why they would do such things. Could this be the organization that guy mentioned before? Looking at the confused Dajun in front of him, Taek Kim told Dajun, "You've been here for a while now. You should know how bad the security is in this neighborhood. Crime incidents happen one after another, but no one cares because the police have long given up on this area." Gang organizations also started running wild. However, the gang organizations were dealt with by a runaway youth organization called Haegwang. So now this neighborhood is managed by the Haegwang organization. And the most notorious guy in Haegwang is Ji Young-cheon. The reason the Hang Il-jo's crew was targeted by them was because they once prevented them from taking over the management of this area. But I didn't expect they would actually find this place. Taek Kim had already told them not to come near the pizza shop area. But what Taek Kim didn't expect was that the shop owner had been paying protection money to Ji Young-cheon all this time. Hearing this, Taek Kim was stunned. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" The shop owner said, "If I didn't do this, I might have disappeared from this neighborhood just like other shops." Even if some shops paid protection money, the other side had no bottom line at all. "Because I once saw my friend's shop burn down in just one night, so I didn't want you to get involved with those guys." Learning the reason for all this, T. Kim was also furious. On the other side, Diop Cha learned of this news and was also angry. "These guys seem to want to eliminate us." T. Kim also warned Diop Cha to be careful of Gyeong Cheon. The next second, Diop Cha saw a group of thugs frantically destroying a shop, and there was an old man and a child lying at the shop entrance. The child on the ground kept crying. Seeing this scene, Diop Cha immediately hung up the phone with T. Kim and prepared to go forward and teach these guys a lesson. The thug in front said directly, "This is what happens when you don't pay protection money, you know?" The thug was about to grab a weapon and hit the old man and child on the ground. Diop Cha's appearance immediately prevented this tragedy from happening, before they could even ask about Diop Cha's purpose. The thug was directly knocked to the ground by Diop Cha's punch. The leaders saw Diop Cha making a move and quickly reported their organization. "We're from Hagwang, how dare you attack us?" Diop Cha, who was looking for someone to vent his anger on, couldn't let such a good opportunity pass. He quickly knocked down this group of thugs, just as he was about to ask if the old man and child were okay. The next second, he was knocked down by a baseball bat. Then a guy with a baseball bat and slicked back hair appeared behind Diop Cha with a group of subordinates. And he was the mastermind behind all this, Gyeong Cheon. On the other side, Dajun and T. Kim's group, who had just returned home, were discussing what happened at the convenience store. But Gyeong Hong kept blaming T. Kim, asking him why he would anger Hagwang over a pizza shop. But T. Kim's answer was unexpected. "But that pizza shop is really delicious. If it closes down, I won't be able to eat there anymore." Just as Gyeong was saying that Hangil-jo had disappeared again, everyone's phones suddenly rang. They picked up their phones and looked. It was actually a message from Diop Cha. Opening it, there was a photo of Diop Cha tied up in an address. The address showed an abandoned factory near a certain location. Gyeong couldn't help but curse when she saw this scene, that bastard. Then everyone came to the abandoned factory at the address. What awaited them would be a fierce battle. The leading man was even more difficult to deal with. As soon as they entered, they were surrounded by thugs. The opposing side had at least 4 times their number, and Diop Cha was already in a sorry state. But the next second, Gyeong Cheon stepped on his face. Gyeong Cheon mocked, "I'm stepping on him now, what can you do about it?" Seeing this scene, Dajun's group could only grit their teeth in anger after the verbal confrontation between both sides. Dajun's group was attacked by a group of thugs. T. Kim suddenly lifted his leg and kicked 3 thugs away with 1 foot. On the other side, Seong Bin Ha kept using his movement techniques. He dodged the man's attacks at extremely fast speed. Suddenly crouching down, he landed several punches on the man. Here, seeing the thug about to attack Gyeong, Dajun was just about to step forward to help. The next second, he was pushed away by Gyeong. Then Gyeong instantly moved behind the man, grabbed him from behind, and executed a perfect suplex. Seeing this scene, Dajun was also stunned. He didn't expect that the runaway from home crew were all so formidable. At this moment, Dajun looked at the chaotic battlefield in front of him, but didn't know where to start, just when T. Kim thought they were about to win. The next second, Gyeong launched an attack on T. Kim. Fortunately, T. Kim dodged in time. Otherwise, if he had taken that hit, he might have ended up like Diop Cha. T. Kim had planned to deal with him last, but didn't expect him to attack first. The next second, a punch and a bat, each struck toward the other. On Dajun's side, facing the thug's attack, he kept dodging. Suddenly seeing the torch behind him, Dajun grabbed the torch and attacked the man with it, just when Dajun thought he had succeeded by hitting him. The next moment, a voice broke the actions of everyone present. Dajun was held hostage by the man with a sharp weapon, just when Gyeong Cheon thought the people present would be stopped by this action. He then asked T. Kim if he wanted to become his subordinate. But T. Kim just smiled. After all, they were very clear about what kind of person Dajun was now. The next second, he threw a punch at Gyeong Cheon's chin. Gyeong Cheon was also made to bleed some ketchup by this hit. The man holding Dajun hostage was also scared by this scene. Suddenly, Dajun violently headbutted the man. The man was instantly knocked unconscious. Before long, all the thugs on the scene were knocked down. Only Gyeong Cheon remained, just when the runaway crew thought they could defeat him together. Unfortunately, Gyeong Cheon was too strong. Even with several people taking turns, they couldn't bring him down. They thought they could eventually wear him down through exhaustion. But Gyeong Cheon wasn't fazed. He then said, "I'll give you one last chance. All of you become my subordinates." Facing such a confident Gyeong Cheon, Gyeong told him to stop daydreaming. But the next second, Gyeong Cheon took his baseball bat and violently struck the iron railing beside him. Suddenly, a large group of thugs emerged from the surroundings. Seeing this scene, the runaway from home crew members looked troubled. Then at Gyeong Cheon's command, take them down. Everyone was overwhelmed by the attack. Gyeong Cheon looked at T. Kim lying on the ground and then told him something interesting. He said, "Do you think you can protect that pizza shop? Actually, when you came here, I sent someone to harass the pizza shop, and he's a fire-loving maniac in Haegwang." He then wanted to call and ask the other person to give Teak Kim a surprise. Just when Ji Eung-cheon thought he had everything under control, just as he was about to call and ask if things were done on the other end, a voice came from the door that sounded the same as the phone. "I heard you were looking for him?" Then a badly beaten guy was thrown in. Ji Eung-cheon's subordinates all looked down at the ground. Then this man who appeared broke this dangerous situation. He then said, "So you're the ones causing trouble." The subordinates looked at the guy on the ground who was barely recognizable, and they all started to retreat. But there's always someone who stands out in a crowd. Hang Il-jo grabbed the man with both hands and stopped him. Then with a crack, his hand did a 360-degree rotation. Seeing this scene, the subordinates immediately felt that fighting him would surely mean death. But unfortunately, Ji Eung-cheon offered that whoever could take down the guy in front would get 1,000. Hearing such a tempting offer, the thugs were immediately moved. Then they rushed forward desperately. But who was Hang Il-jo? He was once that man in Haegwang. Then Hang Il-jo used extremely fierce techniques, continuously clearing out the thugs attacking him. Ji Eung-cheon saw Hang Il-jo about to kill his way over. He quickly threatened to use Teak Kim's arm as leverage to make him stop. But how could Hang Il-jo stop because of this? Just like that, while being blocked by thugs, he killed his way to Ji Eung-cheon. Seeing Hang Il-jo attacking, Ji Eung-cheon was about to strike Hang Il-jo with his baseball bat, but the next second, Hang Il-jo blocked a thug in front of him. Then said, "Finally, only one person left," and threw away the guy in his hands. Ji Eung-cheon looked at this guy in front of him as if facing a great enemy. But the difference in strength was immediately apparent. With one kick from Hang Il-jo, Ji Eung-cheon and his bent baseball bat were sent flying. The defeated Ji Eung-cheon wasn't one to give up easily. He immediately got up and pounced on Hang Il-jo. After Ji Eung-cheon tackled Hang Il-jo, he frantically beat him. But the next second, Hang Il-jo locked his arm in an extremely strange position. With a crack, the arm broke, immediately followed by a scream. Ji Eung-cheon also trembled all over from the pain, and he finally realized how formidable Hang Il-jo was. He then brought up Haegwang to threaten the man, but Hang Il-jo never liked being threatened by others. The next second, he grabbed Ji Eung-cheon's hair and threw him toward the fire in front. Ji Eung-cheon was scared by this action. His head also recalled the warning from a certain man in the Haegwang organization, telling him not to anger Hang Il-jo, because so far, no one in Haegwang dared to do so, knowing that failure would not end well. At this moment, Ji Eung-cheon finally understood, but it was already too late. After dealing with Ji Eung-cheon, Hang Il-jo left with everyone. And at that time, Dajun still didn't know. Their entanglement with Haegwang had just begun. After Dajun's group experienced the Ji Eung-cheon incident, fortunately the pizza shop owner extended a helping hand. Otherwise, with their current living standards, it would be really difficult to pay the high medical expenses. It might be because they were grateful for driving away Ji Eung-cheon and his gang. From that day on, there were almost no Haegwang people on this street. Ji Eung-cheon and others also disappeared without a trace. They thought things would end there. But Hang Il-jo broke this peace, telling everyone that Haegwang would come back after a while. How could they let go of such a large profitable territory? There are many small leaders like Ji Eung-cheon. Those guys are very good at using money to gather runaway youth. As long as they have money, they will gather a large group to continue their wrongdoing. Learning all this, everyone understood. So Diop-cha asked Hang Il-jo, "Since you brought us here, you should know best what we should do, because we have no other place to stay except here." But Hang Il-jo seemed to have made a decision in his heart. That night, Dajun looked at the man in front of him and said, "Brother Hangul, is there a way for me to get stronger quickly?" Dajun knew that if he didn't get stronger quickly, he would just be a burden. So he hoped to become stronger before Haegwang's next arrival. Looking at Dajun in front of him, Hang Il-jo said, "The speed I'm teaching you now is already your limit. But if you really want to get stronger quickly, you really need some extra tutoring." Then he showed a mischievous smile. The next day, Dajun continued to work at the pizza shop. Without Haegwang on the street, life also became peaceful. No one knew how long such a life could last. Dajun, who had just gone out to throw away trash, ran into Na-eun and asked, "School's out?" But Na-eun looked at the doll in front of her, with a grave expression. After Dajun called out again, Na-eun finally came back to her senses and said it was nothing. So during their casual conversation, Na-eun suddenly said, "Dajun, do you want to hang out together after school tomorrow?" Hearing this, Dajun immediately answered happily, "Okay." But the next second, Dajun realized, could this be a date? Time passed to the next day. This was Dajun's first date. He specially styled his hair back, and it must be said this hairstyle made him much more handsome. But Dajun, who came to Na-eun's school gate, never saw her appear. Looking at these students coming out of school one after another, Dajun felt as if he and they were in two different worlds, even though he was also a student not long ago. Then he looked toward the school, but the next second, he saw Na-eun surrounded by a group of men. The man surrounding her even handed Na-eun a doll. Seeing this scene, Dajun seemed to think someone was pursuing Na-eun, but the next second, Dajun saw Na-eun showing a troubled expression. She suddenly threw the doll on the ground and said, "Do you think I don't know that the doll you gave me has surveillance equipment?" Dajun was somewhat shocked to hear this. The next second, the leading man said perversely, "Bitch, you have sharp eyes." So the man wanted to grab the woman. Fortunately, Dajun appeared in time to stop the man, but the man directly pushed Dajun away. The next second, he grabbed Na-eun. Seeing this, Dajun immediately got up and punched the man. The man wasn't a pushover either. He immediately punched Dajun back. A big fight was about to begin. But suddenly, a crowd of onlookers gathered around, looking at those students taking photos with their phones. Another subordinate said, "If we fight at school, the teachers will come too. Let's forget it." So the leading man left under the gaze of the onlookers, and Dajun and the others also escaped disaster. Then they came to a coffee shop. Dajun drank his coffee but looked pained. Then he asked Na-eun, "Have you been bullied by that guy all along?" Na-eun remained silent. Looking at Na-eun in front of him, Dajun then talked about his own previous experiences. Because he was also often bullied before. But as long as you learn to fight back, don't just keep enduring, everything will get better. Hearing Dajun's words, Na-eun couldn't stop her tears from flowing, so she told Dajun about her experiences. But because the pizza shop was often bullied by Haegwang, she buried this matter and didn't tell her father. Seeing such a sunny and cheerful Na-eun actually experiencing such terrible things, Dajun swore to make that man pay dearly. After sending Na-eun home, Dajun began plotting his counterattack. On the other side, Dong-Che, who was at KTV with girls, was completely unaware, and the girl beside him begged him to let her go. Suddenly, someone rushed in through the door. The man called out Jiyeon. It turned out the man was the girl's brother. Just as he was about to beat up the man who was bullying his sister, the next second, he was counterattacked by the man and knocked to the ground. The girl nearby, seeing her brother trying to save her, had to beg him to spare her brother. Hearing this, Dong-Che showed a perverted smile and said, "Then sing a song for me." Under Dong-Che's threat, the girl had to start singing. Before long, Dong-Che was about to take his subordinate to the bathroom. But at this time, the two were completely unaware of the approaching danger. The next second, the subordinate beside him was knocked to the ground. The man was scared by this sudden situation. Then Dajun said, "No one said it had to be you guys looking for me." Seeing Dajun in front of him, holding a fire extinguisher, Dong-Che said, "I was just worried about where to find you." Then he charged at Dajun. Dajun pulled the safety pin and sprayed it at Dong-Che. After being disrupted by the fire extinguisher, he quickly retreated. The next second, he saw Dajun coming at him with the fire extinguisher, but the man had practiced boxing after all, and immediately blocked it with his hand. However, this attack also injured the man's arm. Dajun also knew that if he went head-to-head with him, he definitely wouldn't win, just as he was about to catch him off guard, using the fire extinguisher as cover. The next second, he threw a punch at Dong-Che, but the next second, Dong-Che disappeared. Dong-Che ducked down and punched Dajun in the chin. Then he was suppressed by the man. With one punch, Dajun was knocked to the ground. Seeing Dajun fall, Dong-Che said, "Anyway, thanks for coming to me on your own, saving me the trouble of catching you. As long as I catch you, I can use you to threaten Na-eun to accompany me." Hearing this, Dajun couldn't bear it anymore. He got up and attacked Dong-Che again. But the opponent was a boxer after all. He directly knocked Dajun down with another punch, after fighting with Dong-Che. Dajun also realized that with his boxing techniques, he definitely couldn't beat his opponent. Looking at Dong-Che's punch coming at him again, Dajun grabbed the door handle and violently pushed the door over, while Dong-Che's punch hit the door directly. Dong-Che's right hand instantly lost its attacking ability. Since he couldn't win with boxing, Dajun would play by his own rules. Then he immediately rushed fiercely at Dong-Che. But how could Dong-Che give Dajun a chance? He immediately punched Dajun in the face again. Seeing the desperate Dajun in front of him, Dong-Che also started to panic. Finally, after Dong-Che's right hand completely lost its attacking ability, Dajun seized the opportunity and pounced on the man, using the move Hangul-jo taught him. Dajun grabbed the opponent's back of the head, then immediately delivered a knee strike. Under continuous attacks, with a crack, Dong-Che's eyes rolled back. But the next second, Dong-Che opened his eyes again and tried to break free from Dajun with force. He quickly retreated. But how could Dajun give Dong-Che another chance now? He violently lifted his leg and said, "Scum like you, I'll beat you mercilessly." With a snap, he kicked Dong-Che in the chin. Dong-Che finally realized he had lost and quickly begged for mercy, asking Dajun not to hit him anymore. He said, "I'll never get close to Na-eun again, please spare me." How could Dajun believe his lies? Because none of these bastards could be trusted. Just as he was scolding him, saying if he ever bullied Na-eun again, he shouldn't expect to live, a man with a center part suddenly appeared behind him and immediately pinned Dajun to the ground. seeing his accomplice arrive. How could Donghache remain rational? The next second, he grabbed the fire extinguisher to smash Dajun. Fortunately, Hangil-jo appeared in time and kicked the man away with one foot. The other man saw the scene and immediately rushed toward Hangil-jo. But who was Hangil-jo? With a spinning elbow strike, the center part man was knocked unconscious. Dajun looked at Hangil-jo's appearance and asked, "How are you here?" Hearing this, Hangil-jo said, "I've been secretly observing you. If I don't watch you, how would I know what your current strength is like?" Then he said, "What you currently lack is that you're too hesitant. You never finish things thoroughly. If you keep being like this, you'll suffer sooner or later." Then Hangil-jo violently grabbed Donghache's egg on the ground. This is called leaving no future troubles. Looking at this scene, Dajun suddenly felt a faint sadness from somewhere. Late at night, two people seemed to be discussing Donghache, and in front of them was the girl who was taken away by Donghache that day. The two in front were asking her what exactly happened that day. The girl knew that even if she got beaten, she wouldn't reveal any information about Dajun and the others. Just as the man grabbed the girl's hair, Hangil-jo appeared and grabbed the man's hand, saying, "Oh my, it's little Bully." The man looked at the innocent-faced Hangil-jo and asked confusedly, "Who are you?" Hangil-jo said, I'm just an ordinary youth passing by this place. Have you seen the tuna cans that kind people prepared for stray cats nearby? I'm so hungry." Hearing this, the man grabbed Hangil-jo's collar and was about to make a move. The girl looked at this scene somewhat dumbfounded. Wasn't this the person who saved them that day? The next second, Hangil-jo lightly touched the man's finger with his head and cried out, "Help, someone is bullying a kind, handsome little cutie." The man was speechless, but the next second, a man in a gray hoodie rushed out and immediately punched the man in the face. The blonde saw his brother fall and immediately rushed toward Dajun, wanting to punch him. Dajun quickly dodged. The next second, the blonde was punched in the face by Dajun. The blonde was immediately suppressed by Dajun. The other center part man, seeing the seemingly harmless Hangil-jo, rushed toward him, but in just an instant, he was stopped by the man. Then there was a harmonious scene of the two men watching Dajun fight with their arms around each other's shoulders. On Dajun's side, after experiencing so many battles, he also learned how to flexibly use footwork to dodge attacks while learning the principle of striking first. Dajun also knew his current strength level. He could definitely beat the blonde in front of him. Although he couldn't knock down the blonde in one go, he couldn't let his guard down either. As long as he stayed steady, he could win. But the next second, Hangil-jo kicked and sent the center part man over too, saying, "One isn't enough for training, let's add another." Just as he was secretly pleased about his improved strength. The next second, he was attacked by the two men together. Dajun immediately couldn't handle it. After all, with two people attacking together, he didn't even have a chance to breathe. The blonde and the other man attacked Dajun from front and back. The situation immediately became overwhelming, just as everyone was taking a breather. Suddenly, Dajun pounced on the blonde. Then he pinned down the blonde and launched a fierce attack. The center part man nearby saw this and immediately went over to punch Dajun from behind. But Dajun completely ignored his attack. Since he couldn't beat two people, he'd focus on solving one person at a time. Just after Dajun finished off the blonde, Dajun held a broken glass bottle and walked toward the center part man. The man was immediately scared and fell to the ground. But the next second, Dajun collapsed with a thud. Looking at Dajun on the ground, the center part man was also confused. He immediately prepared to rush toward Dajun. Then he was stopped by Hangil-jo, who said, "That's enough. You've worked hard, you can go home and get some sleep." Looking at Dajun lying on the ground, unable to get up, Hangil-jo also showed a satisfied smile. Back home, Dajun was bandaged up by Gayoung-hang, while Dajun kept saying, "Why did you make me fight 1 versus 2? If it was 1 versus 1, I would have won long ago." Hearing this, Hangil-jo was speechless and casually said, "With your current level, you still want to defeat those scum who bully you. Have you ever seen any of those thugs attack one by one? Those guys always come in groups. If you can only handle 1 versus 1, you'll never become strong." Hearing these words, Dajun's heart was instantly crushed. So what should I do? Of course there's a way. So time came to the next evening, and in the scene they see several thugs surrounding a person. The leader asked, "Is this all the money you brought us today?" And just as the man was about to explain the reason, he was warmly greeted by the people in front of him. And today, these guys were the ones Dajun was going to practice on. Then Hangil-jo pointed with his finger. Dajun nodded in understanding. And Dajun slowly walked toward the group. Just as Dajun approached them, the buzzcut leader asked, "Who are you?" But the next second, Dajun caught him completely off guard. The man was immediately knocked to the ground. Before the leaders could figure out what was happening, the next second Dajun caught the bowl cut guy next to him off guard too. But the guy in front of him actually didn't fall down, which put Dajun in a difficult position. The 3 steps Hangil-jo taught him were, strike first to gain the advantage, and if you can't win, then step 2. Just 2 words, run fast. The guys were completely bewildered by Dajun's operation, and immediately swarmed after him. While Dajun was running away, He kept using things around him as obstacles. With a crash, the small fry in the middle was tripped by the bicycle Dajun threw. And the third step was to fight while running. The advantage of fighting while running is that even if you can't strike first, you can still attack when the opponent is completely unprepared. With just one flash, Dajun disappeared from the sight of the remaining two. Then the two thugs discussed splitting up to search for Dajun. So just as the blonde guy was looking around, Dajun suddenly appeared in front of him the next second. But this attack was actually blocked. However, the opponent's strength was still a bit higher than Dajun's. Dajun was kicked to the ground by the blonde guy again. What followed was a barrage of punches and kicks from the blonde. When the man felt he had beaten Dajun enough, the blonde was about to notify his accomplices to come over quickly. Dajun, lying on the ground, suddenly felt unwilling. Right now, facing such numbers, he still couldn't last long. But the next second, Dajun suddenly erupted as if something was stirring in his heart. Then a brick knocked down the blonde. When his accomplice arrived, he saw Dajun warmly greeting the blonde. And just as he was about to rush forward, seeing Dajun in front of him like a madman, he was suddenly startled. Then he began asking Dajun why he was doing this. Dajun recalled those past encounters. Why should weak guys like me be bullied by people like you? And why can't I fight back? I, Dajun, will become stronger starting from this moment. Seeing this scene, the blonde's accomplice immediately ran away. 2 days later, the scene comes to Jungran High School. Just how perverted is this man in front of us? Just because the man in front accidentally splashed water on his companion while washing his face. The man was about to apologize when he was met with the man's warm greeting. The man's name is Sehyun Hwang. Just as he was warmly greeting the guy on the ground, the person next to him was about to stop him, but Sehyun Hwang didn't care about that. Just as he was about to punch the guy behind him, the next second he was stopped by a large hand. A muscular crew-cut man said, "He already apologized, stop being so persistent." The crew-cut man was about to reason with Sehyun Hwang in front of him. But the next second, Sehyun Hwang kicked at him. But the crew-cut man wasn't a pushover either. He caught his foot with one hand. Just as he was about to punch Sehyun Hwang, Sehyun Hwang blocked it with a side guard. Just as the crew-cut man was preparing another punch for Sehyun Hwang unexpectedly didn't play by the rules and directly spat water, making the crew-cut man unable to open his eyes. Then he immediately gave the crew-cut man a knee to the head. The man who took this hit immediately rolled his eyes back. The next second, Sehyun Hwang took a water pipe and choked the crew-cut man unconscious. With a series of impact sounds, the man was finished off by Sehyun Hwang. Then he called to the other two. "I'm going to make you taste what it's like to defy me too." On the other side, Dajun was enjoying his time alone with Na-eun. Just as Na-eun was about to ask where they should go play this time, the next second, a scene in the corner caught Dajun's attention. Dajun immediately recalled his past encounters. Now seeing such a situation, he inevitably wanted to help. So he made an excuse to Na-eun, saying he'd go to the bathroom and be right back to find her. Just as Dajun appeared in front of the group, Dajun punched and punched, knocking the two to the ground. But these two in front of him were so weak. And the man from before actually gave off a feeling that he wasn't a bad person. Then he asked the man in black, "Were you being bullied?" The man responded gratefully, "Thank you for helping me." Just as he was about to explain how he was being bullied, seeing Dajun was about to leave, he said, "How about having a fight with me too?" Dajun was stunned, but the next second he was grabbed by the man. He took off his glasses and revealed a perverted smile. Wasn't this the perverted man Sehyun Hwang from before? Finally, Dajun realized this guy wasn't the one being bullied at all. He immediately broke free from Sehyun Hwang's restraint. But how could Sehyun Hwang let Dajun go at this point? He kicked at Dajun. Looking at the guy in front of him, Dajun finally realized, this guy just must be retaliated by the ones he bullied before. But Sehyun Hwang said dismissively, "Aren't you taking Jungran High School too lightly?" Then he rushed toward Dajun. Just as Dajun thought their builds weren't much different, and was about to punch him, the next second the advantage of arm length showed. This guy's arms were actually longer than his own. Due to misjudgment, Dajun was instantly suppressed by the man. Before long he was knocked to the ground, but Dajun couldn't just give up like this. He used a move he had learned before. He grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground and threw it at the man's eyes. Sehyun Hwang was instantly stopped by this move. The next second, Dajun rushed toward him, saying, "I'm getting serious now," just as he thought a knee to the head could finish him. Unexpectedly, the unexpected happened. Dajun's leg was actually caught by Sehyun Hwang. With the Sehyun Hwang's twisted smile, he kicked Dajun in the groin. Dajun was immediately knocked down. What followed was the Sehyun Hwang's warm greeting. On the other side, Na-eun kept waiting for Dajun to return, so she went to look for Dajun. The next second, what appeared before her was Dajun continuously wailing, "Why am I still so weak? Fuck!" Then the two came to a small park. Na-eun said, "Dajun, if you keep going like this, something might happen sooner or later." But Dajun knew this too, so he said, "If I don't become stronger, how can I protect you?" Hearing this, Na-eun smiled happily and said, "Dajun, you teach those guys a lesson for me. I believe in you." With Na-eun's encouragement, Dajun also smiled. Later, Dajun returned to Hangil-jo's crew and told them everything that had just happened. Moreover, Dajun had been beaten up by Seyeon Hwang from Jungran High School, who even took photos, saying he would make Dajun unable to survive in this community. The members of Hangul's crew were immediately furious upon hearing this. How dare they touch one of their family members? Let them taste our power right away. Just as they were excitedly discussing how to deal with them, Hangul Joe immediately stopped them, saying, "You can't get involved. Since Dajun is a member of our Hangul crew, then we'll take down a school. Since things have come to this anyway, why don't you, Dajun, just go and dominate that school?" Dajun was stunned. With my pathetic state, having just been beaten up, how am I supposed to rule that school? Isn't this ridiculous? But Hangul Joe's words immediately made Dajun understand, saying, "Dajun, how long do you want to be a coward? You can't always look like you're at everyone's mercy." Dajun immediately awakened. So the next day, two thugs from Jungran High School were looking at their phones, and the photos on the phone were exactly of Dajun being beaten up. They were discussing Dajun's pathetic appearance, just about to say that if Hangul Joe hadn't intervened last time, they would have beaten up Dajun themselves. But the next second, a voice came from behind them. "Just you two?" Then Dajun started fighting without warning, punching the long-haired guy. The man was immediately taken down. The blonde guy next to him quickly rushed toward Dajun. But unfortunately, Dajun had some skill and immediately gave him a facial massage. After being massaged by Dajun, the man immediately asked what Dajun wanted to do. And Dajun's answer immediately shocked the man. This kid actually wanted to dominate Jungran High School. Then Dajun immediately asked who was the boss of Jungran High School. He raised his fist threateningly, telling the man to speak. The man remembered being beaten by Dajun before, so he confessed and told Dajun. The current boss of Jungran High School is Il-tak Hyo, but he's not clear about it because he basically doesn't come to school. Now the school is basically dominated by Seyeon Hwang and Dongjin Kim. When Il-tak Hyo isn't there, they're the bosses. After telling everything, the blonde dragged away the unconscious long-haired guy. Before leaving, he even taunted Dajun anyway, "Even if I tell you, you won't win." Then Dajun called out to the blonde, "Leave those guys' phone numbers." Then he said boldly, "Before long, you'll see Jungran High School's new boss." To dominate Jungran High School, Dajun actually challenged Seyeon Hwang, the second-in-command of Jungran High School. And Seyeon Hwang, looking at the text message Dajun sent, immediately rode his motorcycle and sped away, constantly mocking Dajun's delusions of wanting to dominate Jungran High School. Before long, Seyeon Hwang arrived at the agreed location on his motorcycle. As soon as he got off, he called for Dajun to come out quickly, just as he was about to use Dajun's phone to locate him, and was about to head toward the bushes where the ringtone was coming from. The bushes only contained a phone. Suddenly, Dajun appeared behind him with an arrow step. Dajun punched toward him, but the next second Seyeon Hwang blocked it with his shoulder, saying, "Dajun, is this all you know, these underhanded tactics?" Seeing the guy in front of him, Dajun said, "You won't be able to use your long arm advantage anymore." Then he immediately grabbed Seyeon Hwang's legs. Because for guys with long arms, the best method is to close the distance and knock them down. This way, Seyeon Hwang's advantage would be gone. Seyeon Hwang was stunned by this sudden move. The next second, Dajun grabbed the phone from the ground and smashed it against Seyeon Hwang again and again. On the other side, Dongjin Kim, the other second-in-command of Jungran High School, asked the person next to him where Seyeon Hwang went. The guy next to him replied that he should have gone to find that guy who attacked before. Then he called several thugs nearby to search for Seyeon Hwang. The man next to him was about to remind Dongjin Kim to be careful, but the man said dismissively, "I'm not worried about Seyeon Hwang, but I want to deal with that guy who doesn't know his place." On the other side, Dajun was directly lifted up by Seyeon Hwang, and Dajun suddenly realized something was wrong. The next second, Seyeon Hwang used two fingers to grab Dajun's mouth. Seyeon Hwang smiled eerily, and yanked hard, throwing Dajun away. Dajun's face was immediately covered in blood. "You little brat, if you had held on a bit longer, your mouth would have had a hole. If this is all the skill you have, then don't expect to leave my hands alive today." Dajun immediately felt something was wrong. Then Seyeon Hwang suddenly rushed toward Dajun. Dajun quickly got up to dodge, facing the reversal of the situation. Dajun was instantly suppressed by Seyeon Hwang. Another kick came toward Dajun's left side. Dajun knew that if this continued, he would eventually be worn down by him. Seyeon Hwang looked at Dajun somewhat mockingly. "You want to dominate Jungran High School like this?" Then he beckoned to Dajun with his finger in a taunting manner. Gritting his teeth, Dajun immediately attacked Seyeon Hwang, then used the same move as before. Seeing Dajun using the same move again, Seyeon Hwang had already been caught off guard once. How could he fall for it again? Then he immediately choked Dajun's head and applied force. Dajun was left gasping for breath from this move. But the next second, Dajun quickly used the devastating leg kick. Seyeon Hwang screamed in pain. The next second, two fingers went toward Seyeon Hwang's mouth. Dajun used the same move Seyeon Hwang had used on him, and Seyeon Hwang was immediately thrown to the ground. Hangil-jo, watching from a distance, was also surprised by this scene. This guy's imitation ability is actually so strong. He learned his opponent's technique after seeing it just once. And at this time, Seyeon Hwang, lying on the ground being kicked by Dajun, quickly tried to get Dajun to stop, asking why Dajun was beating him like this. He was an honest person. But how could Dajun believe such lies again? Just as he was about to lift his leg to kick Se Huang again, suddenly Se Huang grabbed Dajun's foot. Then the sound of a motorcycle behind caught Dajun's attention. Dajun almost got run over by the motorcycle behind him. Fortunately, Hangil-jo appeared in time and grabbed Dajun, pulling him away to avoid Dongjin Kim's collision. And Dajun immediately collapsed on the ground, gasping, muttering, "I almost died just now." Looking at the man in front of him, Dajun remembered the photo the people from Jungran High School had shown him before. The newcomer was exactly Dongjin Kim, another second in command of Jungran High School. Looking at Se Huang on the ground, Dongjin Kim didn't expect this guy to be knocked down by Dajun, this young punk. And Dajun and Hangil-jo looking at Dongjin Kim approaching, it looked like there would be a fierce battle. Then Dongjin Kim strode toward Hangil-jo and attacked him with a punch. Hangil-jo pushed him aside and pushed Dongjin Kim down in front of Dajun. Before leaving, he said to Dajun, "You better work hard, I can't help you anymore. You have to defeat both of them alone and dominate Jungran High School." Dongjin Kim, seeing Hangil-jo escaping, quickly tried to stop him from running away. But how could Dajun let him go? Dajun punched toward the man's chin. Just as he thought he had hit Dongjin Kim's chin, Dongjin Kim's horizontal kick came toward Dajun's face. With a crash, Dajun was kicked to the ground. Looking at Dajun in front of him, Dongjin Kim couldn't understand how this seemingly weak guy had managed to pin down and beat up Se Huang. Se Huang quickly said, "I told you I was careless. Otherwise, how could I be beaten by this kid?" And neither of them understood why Dajun wanted to dominate their Jungran High School. "Do you have some grudge against the kids at our school?" Hearing this, Dajun immediately rushed toward the two. "You two shut up." Dajun punched Dongjin Kim in the face with a facial massage. Hearing this, the man said, "Did you see our group chat?" He grabbed Dajun randomly. "Why don't you join us? I guarantee you'll like it." And hearing this guy being so perverted, Dajun immediately flew into a rage and bit down on Dongjin Kim's hand. Dongjin Kim was in so much pain that he let go, then immediately gave Dajun another kick, and Dajun quickly blocked with his arms. Behind him, Se Huang found the right moment and also punched toward Dajun, facing the attack from both of them. Dajun was instantly overwhelmed, and the situation gradually became one-sided, crushing. Dajun also knew that if he couldn't find an opportunity, he might really die here today. The two looked at the swaying Dajun and immediately taunted, "You weakling, we thought you had some ability. Is this all you've got?" Facing their taunts, Dajun was also speechless. "You gang up on me and still have the nerve to act tough?" Then Dajun suddenly rushed towards Se Huang. Seeing Dajun's attack, the man quickly threw a punch. What he didn't expect was that Dajun actually dodged his punch and immediately started running. But how could Dajun really run? Just as Se Huang was about to grab Dajun's hat, Dajun turned around with an uppercut, and Se Huang was immediately knocked to the ground. Dongjin Kim next to him also roared, "You're really useless, you got counter-killed." But the next second, a foot came toward Dongjin Kim. But unfortunately, Dongjin Kim's strength was too powerful. Dajun's kick didn't knock him down. He grabbed Dajun's foot, swept his lower body, and Dajun was immediately knocked down by Dongjin Kim. Then Dongjin Kim immediately gave Dajun a flurry of kicks. Dajun was immediately pushed back by this kick. But just as Dajun was still looking for an opportunity, suddenly Se Huang from behind directly locked Dajun. The two immediately launched a series of attacks on Dajun, saying, "This is street fighting, we don't care about being underhanded or not." Then Dajun was beaten down by the two's gang attack. But how could Dajun be willing to give up? Since they want to play rough, let's see who's tougher. Then Dajun immediately used his head to slam angrily toward the guy behind him, breaking free from the shackles. And Dongjin Kim kept punching Dajun in the face, seemingly wanting to quickly deal with this troublesome Dajun. At this moment, Dajun suddenly tackled Dongjin Kim into the small river. "Since you want to play rough, let's see who's tougher. Let's have a fair duel and see who meets God first." At this moment, Dongjin Kim panicked, because he had never encountered such a reckless guy. Soon, Dongjin Kim was defeated, and Se Huang was covering his nose at this moment, saying that guy's head was made of stone. It almost broke his nose. At this time, Dajun had also come ashore from the water, seemingly preparing to completely finish off Se Huang. Se Huang, who hadn't reacted yet, was immediately punched in the face by Dajun. Se Huang immediately fainted on the spot. Just like that, the two leaders of Jungran High School were completely defeated by Dajun. Dajun was also completely exhausted and collapsed on the ground. Suddenly, a hand from behind reached toward Dajun. The person was Hangil-jo. With Hangil-jo's few compliments, Dajun also showed a silly smile. Then Dajun was dragged by Hangil-jo on the way back. Just as Hangil-jo reminded Dajun that there was still one person in Jungran High School he had to defeat. Otherwise, he would have difficulty becoming the #1 person in Jungran High School in the future. But at this time, Dajun was shocked by the scene in front of him. All the guys who had just been sent by Dongjin Kim to search for Se Huang were now lying on the ground, seemingly all beaten down by someone. At this time, one subordinate on the ground was tremblingly looking at the person in front of him. That person is a monster. Then the man immediately took out his phone And the contact on the phone screen was exactly Il-tak Hyo, the #1 person at Jungran High School. A few hours later, on the other side, Dongjin Kim and the other guy who had been dealt with by Dajun also woke up. The two were discussing Dajun. Dongjin Kim recalled Dajun's eyes at that time and his whole body trembled. Just as the two were still discussing, if Il-tak Hyo found out about today's events, they would probably be in big trouble again. But behind them appeared a man wearing slippers with flower arm tattoos on both hands. The man was Il-tak Hyo. Before Se-yeon Hwang could explain, the man used a whip kick to knock the blonde down again. While stepping on Se-yeon Hwang's head, he said, "When I'm not here, you two are like trash, getting beaten up by anyone?" Dongjin Kim was also somewhat stunned by the man in front of him. Then Il-tak Hyo said, "Don't worry, you two." Time came to the next day. Dajun had just finished buying things outside and was preparing to go home to celebrate yesterday's victory. At this time, a man in black next to him was slowly approaching. Just as he was about to hang up the phone, a man riding a motorcycle with someone carrying an iron rod behind him attacked Dajun. Just as the iron rod was about to hit Dajun's face, Dayup Cha appeared in time and used his hand to block it for Dajun. Seeing their failed attempt, the two immediately wanted to drive away. The guy with the iron rod behind was about to remind the motorcycle rider to watch the road. Then a street survival manual was thrown at the man's head. Then the two were knocked to the ground. The person was Hangil-jo. Hangil-jo stomped hard on the guys on the ground, and they were low-level thugs from Jungran High School. Then Hangil-jo gave them a fatal blow. Dajun, watch carefully. It's useless that you defeated a few small leaders of Jungran High School. You must take down the top boss. And when fighting, once you start, you must cut through the mess quickly without leaving future troubles. This is what I emphasized before. If you hesitate, you'll pay an extremely heavy price later, just like today's events will happen frequently. On the other side, Il-tak Hyo, the boss of Jungran High School, received a phone call, asking if they had already captured Dajun. But what came through the phone was Dajun's voice. Dajun said, "Stop playing these little tricks. Since we're going to fight, let's have a one-on-one duel. I, Dajun, will sweep through Jungran High School." Hearing this, Il-tak Hyo became interested. No one had ever dared to challenge him. Dajun was the first, and Il-tak Hyo brought a bunch of subordinates behind him. He seemingly didn't care about this 1v agreement at all. What Dajun didn't expect was that the man he had to defeat tomorrow was exactly one of the people who had bullied him before. Time turned to evening. Arriving at the agreed location, Dajun began questioning the thugs in front of him, and the thugs in front still mocked, saying Dajun was really an idiot to actually dare come alone. Before Dajun could finish speaking, the man picked up a wooden stick and attacked Dajun. Suddenly, a large hand grabbed toward the man's face. Hangil-jo grabbed the man's head and threw him hard, making the man do a 360-degree spin and fall to the ground. Hangil-jo said, "You scoundrels really don't follow the rules." And several thugs, seeing the man in front of them, immediately panicked, because this man had once single-handedly knocked down dozens of people from their Jungran High School. Then, under Hangil-jo's leadership, Dajun and his group walked into the thugs' encirclement. Hangil-jo looked at the guy sitting in the chair and said, "Is this the guy? Hey, that boss, let's not waste each other's time. Our people won't interfere. How about you and him have a one-on-one duel?" Hearing this, Il-tak Hyo laughed. "Do you think I'll obediently listen to you, trash?" But the next second, Hangil-jo's words immediately made Il-tak Hyo break down. Hangil-jo said, "Are you so afraid of one-on-one because you're scared of losing and not being able to hold your head up in front of your subordinates? Yeah, losing would indeed be quite embarrassing." After hearing this, Il-tak Hyo gritted his teeth. Then Il-tak Hyo stood up and said, "Then I'll cooperate with you once today." Seeing this, Hangil-jo immediately accepted on behalf of Dajun. And Dajun, seeing Il-tak Hyo in front of him, was still somewhat worried, and asked Hangil-jo, "Brother Hangil, he's the boss of Jungran High School. Can I really win?" "Don't worry, every fight has the possibility of winning. Believe in yourself, you can do it. The key is whether you can grasp that possibility." After hearing Hangil-jo's words, Dajun immediately gained confidence. But suddenly the boss of Jungran High School said, "I was wondering who it was. Turns out it's stupid Dajun." Seeing the man in front of him, Dajun was also stunned. "He's Il-tak Hyo?" Dajun recalled his past encounters at school, being ordered around by those guys every day, getting beaten and scolded just for making one wrong step. And one of the perpetrators was him, exactly Il-tak Hyo, the boss of Jungran High School. And Dajun knew he had to win this fight, even if it meant being shattered to pieces. The scene comes to when Dajun first met this guy. Dajun knew this was a scumbag. That day, someone just bumped into a corner of their table and was beaten half to death by him. And he was also a good buddy who worked hand in hand with Doyen Lee. When he first saw Dajun, he very naturally joined the ranks of bullying Dajun. At that time, Dajun was too cowardly to resist and was often called to the rooftop by this group of scumbags, using cigarette ash to burn his hands and using him as an ashtray. And they would mock him without a care, beating Dajun whenever they felt upset. And at that time, Dajun's heart only had cowardice and fear. But this time he would never repeat the same mistakes, because he was no longer the waste who would only escape and fear. Dajun suddenly lifted his leg and rushed toward Il-tak Hyo. With a slap of a punch, Il-Takeo actually blocked Dajun's strike with his arm, just as Dajun was about to use his leg to try to trip Il-Takeo. Il-Takeo took a step back and actually dodged Dajun's attack. Suddenly, Il-Takeo jumped up and said, "Stupid Dajun, I've already seen through your moves." A leg swing kicked toward Dajun's face. Suddenly, Il-Takeo grabbed Dajun's hat. It seemed Il-Takeo wanted to finish off Dajun with one punch. Fortunately, Dajun threw out his fist in time to interrupt his attack. Dajun knew that Il-Takeo in front of him was very strong, but only after fighting did he truly experience his strength. Suddenly, Il-Takeo rushed to Dajun's front at extremely fast speed. Dajun hadn't had time to react yet. The man whooshed with a head lift. Suddenly, his foot was like it had flash installed, instantly lifting to Dajun's head. A whip kick went toward Dajun's forehead. Dajun immediately fell to the ground. And Gaeung Hong on the side, looking at Dajun on the ground, asked Hong Il-jo with some concern whether they should intervene. Suddenly, Dayup Cha nearby said, "I think we can wait a bit more, because during this time, that kid has been undergoing extremely harsh training every day. He's not the kind of guy who would be easily defeated like this." On the other side, while Il-Takeo was still wondering if Dajun was already finished, suddenly Dajun rushed toward him. After being grabbed by Dajun, Il-Takeo quickly used an elbow strike toward Dajun's back. Dajun cried out in pain from this strike. Just like that, in front of the Jungran High School subordinates. Dajun tackled Il-Takeo to the ground. A straight punch went toward Il-Takeo's face. At this moment, Il-Takeo showed a surprised expression. He was actually being beaten by a guy he once considered trash. He quickly kicked Dajun away. Il-Takeo quickly got up and attacked Dajun again. Just as he was about to kick Dajun again, unexpectedly Dajun caught it. Dajun threw Il-Takeo down with a hard swing. The situation instantly reversed. And the subordinates around seeing the scene were also somewhat surprised. Their boss actually had similar strength to Dajun. Had that kid really been bullied before? And hearing this, Il-Takeo was also somewhat angry. He was actually being beaten in front of his subordinates. And at this time, Dajun was giving him a feeling of pressure. Suddenly, Il-Takeo fiercely grabbed Dajun's hand. In an instant, Dajun's hand was twisted in a 360-degree rotation. Dajun immediately winced in pain. Images of being bullied by these scumbags suddenly flashed through his mind. Even though he was miserable back then, he couldn't fight back. Even when I think I'm doing well, IT shows up out of nowhere. The face I used to make when I was being bullied just comes out. But this time, I won't let you do whatever you want anymore. The pain you put me through back then, whether it was grueling training, or the combat practice that Hang Il-jo made me do, or getting beaten up by others, I can endure it all, as long as I can make you show the same humiliated expression I once had. And this strike finally broke through Dajun's years of psychological barriers. With a loud crash, Il-Takeo was instantly sent flying by Dajun, blood spattering. Just when Gaeung Hong and the others thought it was all over, suddenly Gaeung's expression changed. Il-Takeo actually locked Dajun's arm with his own, and said, "You bastard, how long do you think you can act tough? Really getting ahead of yourself." Dajun was also hurt by this move. Taek Kim and Song Bin Ha on the side wanted to rush forward to stop it, but were held back by Dayup Cha. Then they looked at Hang Il-jo, but Hang Il-jo didn't seem worried at all. Just like that, Dajun and Il-Takeo were locked in a stalemate under everyone's watchful eyes, and Dajun's hand kept making cracking sounds. At this moment, Dajun surprised Il-Takeo, and just as he was about to persuade Dajun to give up struggling, suddenly Dajun burst forth, enduring the pain. He kicked off with both feet, his whole body flipped 180 degrees. This scene stunned Il-Takeo. He never expected Dajun to break his shoulder lock this way. Dajun quickly pulled his arm free from Il-Takeo's grip. Before Il-Takeo could react, Dajun kicked toward Il-Takeo's face. Dajun quickly grabbed Il-Takeo and swung his fists. In front of the Jungran High School lackeys, he punched the man's face again and again, instantly reversing the situation. But just then, one of Jungran High School's lackeys actually kicked Dajun away, and the situation became chaotic. Members of Hang Il-jo's crew immediately joined the battle, taking care of the nearby thugs, while Dajun was surrounded and attacked by several from Jungran School. But at this moment, a foot viciously kicked toward one of the thugs beside Dajun. The kicked lackey asked Il-Takeo in confusion, "We're helping you, but you kicked me?" Then Il-Takeo said, "You guys are making me look bad. You don't think I'd lose to him, do you? Nobody here is allowed to move. I'll personally take care of this guy myself." Taek Kim and the others also stopped their attacks. And Il-Takeo kept taunting Dajun, "Don't think having a little strength now means you can beat me. After I take you down this time, you won't be able to use your hands to eat." As Il-Takeo spoke, he suddenly kicked viciously toward Dajun's face again. Dajun quickly blocked the incoming attacks with his arms. Il-Takeo attacked Dajun while taunting him. "You're naturally a disgusting cockroach. I absolutely won't allow you to crawl over me." But at this moment, Dajun punched toward Il-Takeo's face again. Il-Takeo still didn't seem to realize he was at the end of his rope, because from the beginning, he had been fighting evenly with this guy he once considered trash. If he didn't quickly defeat Dajun in front of his lackeys, then his status would be shaken. And these lackeys would doubt that he was no longer the predator at the top of the pyramid. Because even if his fighting skills were good, without followers it would all be meaningless. Iltakheo burst forth toward Dajun again, still telling Dajun to get down on the ground, and beg me for mercy. At this moment, the two rushed toward each other again. Both landed punches on each other's faces. Teak Kim, seeing the scene, quickly asked, Hangul-jo, when did Dajun reach this level? What exactly did you do? Hangul-jo said, I didn't do anything special. I just taught him the basics of fighting. The reason he's improving so rapidly is because he can instinctively react. At this moment, Dajun was gradually gaining the upper hand. One punch, then another punch. Dajun knew he had to quickly find a way to win, because if this continued, he might really lose. Just as Iltakheo launched another attack on Dajun. Dajun seemed to see the light of victory in his eyes. Dajun used his footwork, turned and dodged Iltakheo's punch, under everyone's surprised gaze. Before Iltakheo could react, Dajun turned again and threw a punch, landing heavily on Iltakheo's face. Iltakheo's eyes immediately rolled back, blood gushing from his face, just as he tried to counterattack again. Dajun's fist came toward his face once more. Dajun threw punch after punch. After several consecutive punches, Iltakheo gradually began to lose consciousness to resist. Finally, with Dajun's uppercut, he completely knocked down this guy who had bullied him for so long. Looking at Iltakheo lying motionless on the ground, Dajun's trembling hands told him it was all over. He had finally dealt with a nightmare that had haunted him for years. The Jungran school lackeys all showed expressions of disbelief, because that guy who seemed like a weakling had actually knocked down their boss. Members of Hangul-jo's crew, seeing Dajun defeat the man, all showed expressions of surprise and joy. The nearby thugs, seeing this scene, quickly said, What should we do? That guy actually defeated Iltakheo. Another lackey said, We outnumber them. Maybe if we all attack together we can take them down. Just as the Jungran school crowd looked toward Hangul-jo again, fear in their hearts overcame courage, because this guy was really terrifying. Hangul-jo said, Are you guys all blind? Can't you see he knocked down your boss? If you still want to fight, you'll get taken out by him. Then Hangul-jo whispered in Dajun's ear, Kid, don't just stand there dazed. You're the one who defeated their boss. You need to show your presence and make these thugs afraid. Understand? Then Dajun looked at the thugs in front of him and said, You're all Iltakheo's subordinates, right? Who gave you permission to stare at me like that? If you want to retaliate, be prepared to have your legs broken. The lackeys, seeing Dajun in front of them, immediately fled in panic, and Dajun finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hangul-jo looked at Dajun and said, Dajun, in my opinion, you were able to defeat that guy this time. Also because that guy still treated you like the same idiot from before, so he was careless from the start. Because he couldn't accept being defeated by someone he once considered trash, he was mentally affected. If he had treated you as an equal opponent from the beginning, your chances of winning would have been much lower. But anyway, congratulations on shedding your loser image. Dajun smiled foolishly upon hearing this. After the duel with Iltakheo ended, new changes occurred within Jungran High School, with internal divisions beginning to appear. The girls who had been victimized in the group chat also took this opportunity to jointly report these delinquent students. Therefore, Jungran School convened a large-scale disciplinary committee. Dajun also took the opportunity to submit the evidence he had obtained from Dongjin Kim last time. Most of the delinquents received suspension punishments, while several main figures received expulsion. Seyeon Hwang, Dongjin Kim, Iltakheo, and others would inevitably be sent to juvenile detention. But Iltakheo had disappeared without a trace since his duel with Dajun. In any case, Jungran School, after being cleaned up by Dajun, had become a quiet and peaceful campus. Na-yoon even doubted if this was still the same school she had attended. Since then, Na-yoon's mood had also become much happier, and Dajun, looking at the scene before him, felt everything was developing in a good direction. That evening, the scene in front of him left Dajun dumbfounded. Diop stared at Dajun and said, Of course we have to do this. With a bang, Diop shot a confetti cannon at Dajun, and in front of them was a cake, celebrating Dajun's defeat of the Jungran School boss. But the next second, Diop was hugging the cake and devouring it, muttering, Little dummy, you beat a school's boss? How could we not commemorate such a touching moment? Dajun, seeing Diop wolfing down the food in front of him, was somewhat speechless. I think you just wanted to eat cake. Teak Kim also handed Dajun a piece of pork belly from the grill. Teak Kim said, Dajun, I was really shocked by you too. Although I haven't known you long, I didn't expect you to change so much in such a short time. I really think highly of you. Seongbin on the side also mentioned to Dajun, With your current strength, you should be able to get proper revenge. Hearing this, Dajun fell into deep thought. Late at night, Dajun couldn't sleep no matter what. He quietly went to the rooftop alone. Just as Dajun arrived at the rooftop, he was attracted by a voice behind him. It was Hangul-jo, who said, You've already gotten your revenge and become stronger as you wished, but you don't seem particularly happy. Is there still some problem? Hearing this, Daejun couldn't help but fall silent for a moment. Then he said, although this was the first time I successfully got revenge on someone who bullied me, and it felt good. I've never had this kind of feeling before, but I also feel wronged. Even if I beat them beyond recognition, I still can't live a beautiful life with my family or have an ordinary school life. No matter how much revenge I get, it seems I can't go back to the past, so I feel too wronged. Hearing this, Hangil-jo said, so you want to give up on revenge like this? No, I still want to get revenge on those bastards. Hearing this, Hangil-jo patted Daejun's head with his hand. Why are you sighing about life here like you've settled everything? Is your revenge over, brat? Are you afraid that after getting your revenge you'll continue living neither like a human nor a ghost? Don't worry, after you finish your revenge, I'll make your damn street life rich and colorful. Just trust your big brother. Hearing these words, Daejun was moved, and Dayop, hearing their conversation, seemed to have some thoughts in his heart. The next day arrived. Just as Daejun was about to go out to work, Dayop stopped him and said, I already asked for leave for you, you don't need to go today. Hearing this, Daejun was somewhat stunned. Seeing the somewhat dazed Daejun in front of him, Dayop quickly said, stop talking nonsense and come with me. Let's have a good time today. So the members of Hangil-jo's family, led by Dayop, had a great day of fun. Time flew by, and Daejun had just left the KTV. This day was the first time since leaving home that he felt the kind of happiness similar to being with family. Perhaps for him now, the current members of Hangil-jo's family could really be considered his actual family. But at this moment, a voice behind him interrupted Daejun's fantasy. The person was actually him, Daejun's father. Have you ever experienced being beaten by your parents as a child for poor grades? The boy in front of us was beaten 9 times in 3 days, just because his grades weren't as good as his brothers. Every time the man disciplined the boy, he would say, don't say you're my son when you're outside, calling the boy useless. After being disciplined, his mother would apply ointment to him, saying dad hits you for your own good, because he loves and cares about you. The boy believed his mother's words completely, determined to study hard and improve every day, and all this effort was just to meet the man's expectations. Hard work paid off, and the boy achieved good grades. That day, the boy brought his report card, full of hope that his father would praise him like he praised his brother. But the man just sighed deeply and said, even though you're real brothers, why is the gap so big? Since that day, the man neither praised the boy nor hit him. The man no longer asked about the boy's studies and grades. After that, for a good period, the boy thought it was great not to get beaten. But after that, the man never asked about the boy's affairs again, whether it was things at school or the boy's troubles. As long as it concerned the boy, he chose to ignore everything. The boy also became a forgotten person at home. The boy felt lonely. Even though he wasn't getting beaten anymore, why did his heart hurt more than before? But after the boy was kicked out of the house by the man for many days, the two met again. What greeted him was a big slap from the man. Daejun was left bewildered by this hit. The man scolded, don't you know to come home after going out? Do you still consider me your father? Because of you, I've lost face in front of the neighbors. Stop embarrassing yourself outside and come home with me right now. I'll deal with you properly when you get home. Hearing the man's words, Daejun was also somewhat angry, because after being kicked out of the house for so long, when they met again, he wasn't greeted with the man's concern, but with scolding and beating. At this moment, Daejun had begun to lose hope in the man. Daejun also mustered courage and shouted angrily at the man, since you don't want me, then abandon me completely. Don't try to fulfill a father's responsibility now. Hearing this, the man trembled with rage. What greeted the boy was another beating. While beating him, the man kept cursing, you've stayed outside too long, haven't you? How dare you talk to me like this? Fine. I don't care whether you live or die outside. Do whatever you want. I shouldn't have let your mother give birth to you in the first place. Daejun let the man beat him until his face was covered in tears. But at this moment, the man was pulled away by someone behind him. It was Hangil-jo. The man immediately said, let go quickly. You don't look like a good person. Hearing this, Hangil-jo said, as you said, I am indeed a real thug, but if you dare to hit him again, I absolutely won't let you off, even if you are Daejun's father. While I'm still being polite to you, you'd better leave quickly. Hearing this, the man said to Daejun, Daejun, are you mixing with these improper people now? Do you want to ruin your life? This is the last chance I'm giving you to come home. Are you coming back or not? If you don't come with me today, don't ever think about entering the house again. Hearing this, Daejun was completely disappointed in the man and said, I agree with your thinking. I don't need that cold house either. Hearing this, the man gradually became speechless and left under their gaze. Daejun's heart also went through intense struggle. It's really over, I have no family anymore. Just as Daejun was still immersed in the pain from earlier, Hangil-jo interrupted him. Daejun quickly pushed away Hangil-jo's hand and asked, what are you doing? Hearing this, Hangil-jo said, don't be sad about losing family like that. You'll always find real family. People connected by blood aren't necessarily real family. Heart-to-heart connection is what matters most. Hearing this, Dajun burst into tears. Although this incident happened today, his heart seemed to find peace. Dajun, who once thought leaving home meant no hope, but now he already had perfect family. After living outside for several months, Dajun had adapted to his new life, and his past life was gradually fading away. Daily training had become his routine. He was occasionally teased by T. Kim and Seong Bin, and his daily work at the pizza shop. He would still encounter troublemakers. But Dajun had become accustomed to this. He would habitually throw out the troublemakers. His daily life with the runaway-from-home crew was gradually integrating, although sometimes he would bicker with Dayop at home. Every afternoon he would train with Hangul-jo. And Hangul-jo, watching Dajun's rapid progress, also showed a gratified expression on his face. But Hangul-jo was still Hangul-jo. No matter how fast Dajun's strength improved, he could still knock Dajun down in one move. Seeing Dajun on the ground, Hangul-jo also felt it was time. Should we start taking action? Begin your revenge plan. The scene shifted to a hospital. The life monitor kept making beeping sounds. ID badge hung on the bed rail. A critically ill man lay on the hospital bed. The man had a very deep wound on his forehead. But suddenly, the man opened his bloodshot eyes. Gasping for air, he sat up. The man was Doyun Lee, who had been pushed toward a truck by Dajun and nearly killed. News of Doyun Lee's discharge also reached his former partners in crime. Two people were discussing Doyun Lee, but a limping foot walked toward them. Didn't I tell you to call everyone from Ujin High School? Why are there only you two? Hearing this, the guy wearing a mask said, "Those guys don't want to come, afraid of causing more trouble." I was also beaten by Dajun. The rest were also severely beaten by Hangul-jo, so everyone's scared and doesn't dare come. You should just endure it. As soon as he finished speaking, Doyun Lee exploded. I was made into this state by that kid, and you want me to endure it? Damn it, do you think I'm easy to bully too? Shut your stinking mouth right now and come beat him up with me immediately. The man grabbed by Doyun Lee also got angry. He quickly shook off the collar grabbed by Doyun Lee. But Doyun Lee was immediately knocked down by the man and the air instantly froze. The man said, "Doyun Lee, in your current state, what can you do with that crippled leg?" Hearing this, Doyun Lee said viciously, "So what if my leg is crippled? You mean you won't go with me?" The two explained, "It's not that, even if we go now." Before they could finish, Doyun Lee interrupted, "You damn bastards. I knew you'd be like this. I heard you didn't even visit me when I was sick. You disloyal bastards." Then he left under their gaze, going alone to settle accounts with Dajun. The scene shifted. At this moment, Dajun came to Naun's school to bring her an umbrella. The boss said it might rain when school lets out, so he asked me to bring you an umbrella. Naun saw Hangul-jo behind Dajun and said, "Why did Hangul come too?" Hearing this, Hangul said, "Haha, I wanted to eat free pizza from your house, so I followed along." Then the group left amid chatter, but they didn't notice someone in black wearing a hat was following them. Doyun Lee was staring at them maliciously. Doyun Lee had learned from the two people he questioned earlier that after Jungran school boss Il-tak-heo was defeated by Dajun, he disappeared without a trace. But Doyun Lee still didn't believe it. Just as Doyun Lee dialed Il-tak-heo's number again, the screen full of missed calls made Doyun Lee somewhat anxious. So Doyun Lee kept following Dajun and his group. But at this moment, Dajun's group encountered a bunch of thugs bullying someone. A man walked toward Hangul-jo. "Can't you see we're busy? Stay here and I'll break your legs." Immediately the two locked eyes, and the man, seeing Hangul-jo unmoved, became furious. He threw a punch at Hangul-jo. With a slap, the man was knocked down. Seeing the scene, Dajun immediately launched an attack on the nearby thugs. With an uppercut, the guy in front of him immediately started bleeding. Just like that, the two began counterattacking under everyone's siege. Doyun Lee, who was following Dajun, was stunned seeing this scene. At this moment, several thugs finally realized something was wrong, because the two in front of them were very strong. Looking at the man again, they suddenly realized this was Hangul-jo. The two panicked. They immediately pulled their accomplices and fled under the two's gaze. At this moment, everyone also noticed the uncle nearby. Hangul-jo said, "Uncle, do you know this area is dangerous? Be more careful in the future and don't provoke them." But the uncle quickly said, "No, those people deliberately targeted me. They first confirmed my identity, then attacked me. Someone who knows me must have deliberately instructed them to find me." Hangul-jo, seeing this familiar investigation method, also realized something was wrong, because this was a common method used by the organization he once belonged to. Had they come back? Doyun Lee, watching the scene from a corner, finally realized that Dajun was no longer someone he could bully at will, because in Doyun Lee's current state, he definitely couldn't beat him. Was he actually scared of him now? So Doyun Lee left cursing. But at this moment, a hand landed on his shoulder, and he heard, "Why is your mouth so dirty? Were you just cursing at us?" Doyun Lee asked in confusion. "What do you want?" But the next second, the man slapped Doyun Lee. "I'm just looking for trouble. What can you do about it? Quickly hand over your wallet and phone." But who was Doyun Lee? He wouldn't allow such threats. He threw a punch at the man's face. "Damn it, you dare rob my wallet!" But the next second, amid sounds of punching and kicking, Do-yeon Lee was stepped on by the man. Do-yeon Lee also realized that in his current state, he couldn't beat them. So he began to beg for mercy. But how could the troublemaker easily let him go? A half-eaten ice cream was thrown in front of Do-yeon Lee. A voice said, "Eat it. If you eat it in front of us, we'll let you go." Then the man pressed Do-yeon Lee's head down hard. But just as his mouth was about to touch the ice cream, one of the guys nearby was knocked to the ground. The man, seeing his accomplice knocked down, immediately got up and charged at the person in front. But the next second, the man was also knocked down. "There are more and more guys like this lately. We've driven away 2 groups today." Daejin said, Can you get up by yourself?" Hearing Daejin's voice, Do-yeon Lee panicked. The scene shifted. In Do-yeon Lee's life, there was also a past he wanted to erase, though it was very brief. As a child, Do-yeon Lee had also been isolated, just because he was fat. Classmates often looked down on him and mocked him. Each time, Do-yeon Lee didn't dare talk back, nor did he dare look directly into their eyes. Until the day Do-yeon Lee learned to fight back. That moment when Do-yeon Lee looked down at the guy he had beaten. Do-yeon Lee realized what life was. After that, Do-yeon Lee was determined never to return to the past, but a voice nearby suddenly interrupted Do-yeon Lee's recollection. Daejin said, "Let me help you up. You can grab my hand." Looking at Daejin's outstretched hand, Do-yeon Lee's whole body trembled. Then he immediately got up and walked away. But due to his current physical condition, he could only limp along. But Daejin's voice rang out again, "Let me help you walk." Do-yeon Lee began to panic. Watching Daejun gradually approach, if he was discovered, he might get beaten badly. But at this moment, it suddenly started raining heavily. Do-yeon Lee, dragging his crippled leg, just wanted to quickly leave this damn place. Daejun, watching the man in front, was still somewhat worried. And just when Do-yeon Lee thought Daejun wasn't following anymore, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking to himself that after leaving here, he would find someone to beat him up badly. Just as Do-yeon Lee was thinking this, an umbrella blocked the rain above his head. Daejun said, "I can see you're not in good health. Take this umbrella and walk with it." Just as Daejun was about to hand the umbrella to the man in front, Do-yeon Lee pushed Daejun away, and walked away without looking back. But Daejun, still somewhat worried about the man in front, said, "You shouldn't refuse me." But at this moment, a familiar yet strange voice mixed with the rain, "Please, stay away from me." Though the voice was small, perhaps because of the rain it was somewhat unclear, but Daejun instinctively felt uncomfortable and got goosebumps. That subtle voice touched something deep in Daejun's buried memories. But why did I feel uncomfortable that day, yet still sent that person away? Maybe it was because of the rainy day, or maybe someone was waiting for me. And Daejun still regrets what happened that day. The scene shifted. Hangul-jo said to Daejun, "Recently, whether in personal practice or real combat practice outside, you've far exceeded the passing grade. I declare your fighting course officially graduated." Hearing these words, Daejun's eyes filled with tears. Then Daejun, watched by the Hangul family members, received the graduation gift Hangul-jo handed him. Tae Kim on the side also remembered those past days, seeing Daejun putting on his clothes in front of them. Dae-up said, "Now there's only one thing left for us to do. Our group is going to Ujin School where you used to study." Hearing this, Daejun was somewhat surprised. "You're going too? This is my personal matter. It's fine if you don't go, and I need to settle this myself." But the next second, Dae-up said again, "What are you talking about? How can it be just your business? You're also a member of the Hangul family. Don't worry, we won't interfere directly. If you suddenly get scared during the fight, just make a gesture." Looking at everyone, Daejun was moved. Then he said, "Thank you everyone. It's time for me to settle my past life." At this moment, Do-yeon Lee is here. Dejected, he staggers to the edge of the overpass, wanting to end his life. Just when Do-yeon Lee thought everything was over, his phone suddenly rings. The screen clearly shows 5 big characters, Jungnam High School, Iltak-hyo. As Do-yeon Lee answers the phone, he hears the voice on the other end say, "Are you awake, Do-yeon Lee? Why are you looking for me so urgently after waking up? But I think I know the reason." Hearing Iltak-hyo's words, Do-yeon Lee immediately roars in anger. "Why are you only answering now? Do you know what kind of humiliation I suffered from Daejun?" Upon hearing this, Iltak-hyo says, "You went to find him so quickly. That kid has changed a lot. With your current state, you probably can't beat him." Hearing these words makes Do-yeon Lee even more furious. "Damn it, you're still talking sarcastically here. I heard you also lost to that Daejun, and you were expelled from Jungnam High School. You can't even gather your brothers anymore. What can you do?" Iltak-hyo says, "I don't need that broken place anymore." But at this moment, screams of agony can be heard behind Iltak-hyo as a guy with a wrench keeps pulling out the teeth of the person in front of him. Do-yeon Lee also hears this terrifying sound and immediately asks what that sound was just now. Iltak-hyo says, "I've now joined an organization that's even more fun than Jungnam High School. Have you heard of Haegwang?" The guys here will use violence to do things for others as long as they're paid. Doyun Lee asks in disbelief, "Are you telling the truth?" Il-Takeo says, "Don't doubt my words. Everyone at Hagwon is carefully selected trash. They do everything except use violence, threats, kidnapping, everything. So as long as you bring money, you can do whatever you want." This conversation between the two also sets up foreshadowing for a certain day in the future. Time comes to the next day. Dajun continues to work at the pizza shop as usual. Dajun is secretly thinking that after he completes his revenge, he wants to take his relationship with Na-eun to the next level. But recently there's one thing that concerns Dajun. That is, he learned from Hangil-jo that the Hagwon organization has recently risen from the ashes. They could appear around the Hangil-jo family at any time, and anyone around the Hangil-jo family could become a target. Dajun also understands that he must protect the people around him. But as soon as Dajun arrives at the pizza shop and opens the door, he sees that the boss's hand is injured. Dajun immediately asks if it was done by those Hagwon people. But the boss hesitates and refuses to tell the truth, under Dajun's persistent questioning. It turns out the boss just accidentally fell while walking. Now the atmosphere between the two becomes awkward. After this questioning, Dajun goes to the changing room to prepare to change clothes. But two people appear in front of him. He sees Na-eun tying an apron for a blonde guy. Seeing Na-eun and the blonde guy's intimate actions, Dajun is dumbfounded. But the next second, the blonde guy appears in front of Dajun and extends his hand saying, "Hello, I heard you're a year older than me. I'll call you Hyung. Just call me Songho." At this moment, Dajun couldn't be more unhappy, and frankly, I as the author also find him annoying. But even so, Dajun still has to, as a senior, take him to familiarize himself with the daily work of the pizza shop. Dajun also works very hard to show off his work abilities in front of his junior. But since it's Songho's first time working, he's still somewhat unfamiliar. Seeing this, Dajun immediately steps forward and tells Songho to go inside first. Then Dajun cleans up and hands a fresh cola to the customer in front, just when Dajun thought his senior abilities were being demonstrated. The next second, Dajun is dumbfounded, because Na-eun is comforting Songho. After Na-eun leaves, Songho takes out a pack of cigarettes and asks, "Do you smoke?" Then Dajun and he come to the back door of the pizza shop, and Songho says, "Hyung, you're really amazing." Hearing this, Dajun immediately becomes smug and scratches his head saying, "It's nothing." Dajun also asks why Songho started working part-time at such a young age. Songho says, "Actually, I need money, because I'm considering whether to run away from home. Maybe for certain reasons." Hearing Songho's words, Dajun also understands that this guy must have many difficulties. But thinking about how he was jealous of him today, because he was afraid of his close relationship with Na-eun, Dajun instantly feels regretful. Then Dajun tells Songho about his own situation, that he also ran away from home, telling him not to think of running away from home too simply. Because living on the streets, dangerous things could happen every day. I advise you not to run away from home. But I also know you might have experienced many things, and I know there are always situations where you have no choice. To be honest, I can't use a firm tone to stop you from running away from home. Although I can't help you much, if you have any problems, you can always come to me. Hearing this, Songho thanks Dajun. Then while advising Songho not to run away from home, Dajun demonstrates a reverse smoking technique, acting deep. Time comes to the next day. Dajun is dumbfounded when he arrives at the convenience store. In just one day, Songho has learned to make pizza dough in front of everyone. Then he finished the remaining work, and with his handsome face, he also attracted a bunch of customers to the store. The boss and Na-eun on the side also sigh that because of Songho, today's sales are very good. Then Na-eun walks forward and touches Songho's head. Seeing this scene, Dajun immediately becomes unsettled. He hurriedly rushes out under the gaze of the two. But just as Dajun comes to the door sighing that life is truly unpredictable, a hand pats his shoulder. He sees a guy in front of him panting and saying, "Can you help me find a place to hide? I might lose my life if I'm caught now." Several thugs who rushed out from the side see that the person has disappeared. They hurriedly scatter to search under Dajun's gaze. The man thus escapes disaster. From the man's words, he learns he's a member of a very famous organization, just as Dajun thought the organization he mentioned wouldn't be Hagwon. The man reveals, "Have you heard of the Hangil-jo family?" Hearing this, Dajun is somewhat dumbfounded. The man then talks endlessly to Dajun about previously beating up Jeong Cheon, and most ridiculously, the number of people involved was exaggerated to 1 against 100. Looking at this guy in front of him who uses Hangil-jo's name to show off everywhere, Dajun is deeply unsatisfied. But just as Dajun was about to ask why Hagwon would target the Hangil-jo family, several thugs who were just looking for the Red Hat Man appear behind them, and the leader says, "So you're hiding here." Before the Red Hat Man can react, he's pinned to the ground and roughed up by 2 thugs, while the leader just stares at Dajun and says, "Who are you? Do you know him?" Dajun responds, "I don't know him," then asks if the guy in front is from Hagwon. The man says, "Good that you know, get lost." But the next second he gets punched by Dajun. Now the man is angry. Is this guy crazy? Why is he randomly hitting people? Then Dajun says to the red hat man, "Don't use our Hanguljo family's name to deceive people everywhere." A thug on the side sees his companion and says, "This guy is the crazy one who bit Jeong Cheon at the abandoned factory before." The leader, hearing that this guy is from the Hanguljo family, gets a bit scared and says, "Maybe we should retreat first." But the guy on the side says, "It's fine. This kid looks like a pushover. He's the weakest guy in the Hanguljo family." He also mocks that Hanguljo family members are just a bunch of trash who only know how to beg for mercy. Hearing this, Dajun immediately gets angry. Before the man can finish speaking, a left hook hits the man's face. The man is instantly knocked down. "You bastards are looking for death, aren't you?" The other two thugs, seeing this scene, immediately attack Dajun. Dajun uses his footwork to nimbly dodge the two's attacks. The next second, a leg kicks toward Dajun, who quickly blocks with both arms. Then, kicks the man in front of him, and punches another thug in the face. The fallen thug finally realizes he's no match for Dajun. He hurriedly starts begging him to let him go. The red hat man on the side is instantly shocked seeing this scene. He hurriedly gets up and tries to run. Before he can escape, Dajun stops him. Dajun also finds it strange. He just thought this red hat man was being targeted by Haegwang people because he was impersonating Hanguljo family members. But from what those guys just said, they're not after you because you're from the Hanguljo family. So why exactly are you being chased by Haegwang people? If you don't want to pay the price for impersonating us. The red hat man says, "Actually, I'm also from Haegwang." Hearing this, Dajun immediately prepares to fight. The red hat man hurriedly explains that he was betrayed by Haegwang people. Because after Jeong Cheon disappeared, the nearby Haegwang organization changed its business model. They no longer go to various shops to collect protection fees. Now Haegwang accepts commissions from others, taking money to do things for people. As long as it's something the underworld dares to do, they'll do it all. As for why I was betrayed by Haegwang, it's also because of that guy. Dajun sees the guy in front and immediately recalls, "Isn't this the person who was beaten before?" The red hat man looks at Dajun puzzledly and asks if he knows him. Dajun responds that he saved him before because he was being chased and beaten by Haegwang people. Hearing this, the red hat man says through gritted teeth, "It's probably related to him because he's my dad, and also a district official in this area." The scene shifts to the red hat man's memory. The district head's son ran away from home and joined Haegwang. He thought life would be very comfortable. But when he saw Haegwang members committing crimes, he realized this organization wasn't as beautiful as he originally imagined, but was very cruel. Just when he felt disappointed with this organization, he learned that someone actually paid Haegwang to commission them to use violence and threats against his father. Then, during the investigation of his father, they learned he was the district head's son, and Haegwang wanted to blackmail his dad and capture him as a hostage. He thought they would be family, but unexpectedly, Haegwang guys turned their backs on him immediately. So he figured since he was already being targeted, he might as well go all out and steal the money that commissioned Haegwang and run away. Dajun looks at the guy in front and says, "Then isn't your dad in a very dangerous situation?" The man says he doesn't care, but his expression betrayed him. So Dajun says to this impatient guy, "To be honest, I don't know what to say about topics regarding fathers. But regarding the topic of family, I do understand some things." So he says, "The people who truly care about you and worry about you are the ones you need to protect with your life." Hearing this, the little red hat angrily scolds, "You mean I should risk my life fighting Haegwang for that old stubborn man? He never considered me." Dajun explains to him, "Actually, your dad isn't what you think. After you left home, he's been looking for you. The reason he didn't recognize your current appearance is because the photo he showed me last time is different from how you look now. But I can clearly tell you that your dad is very worried about you and is indeed frantically looking for you. He asked me to tell you sorry when I found you." Hearing this, the little red hat immediately tears up. He should have known better than to run away from home and wouldn't have ended up being targeted by Haegwang people now. Looking at the guy in front, Dajun suddenly feels ironic. Because in these 2 days, he's met two guys. One is considering running away from home, while the other regrets running away from home. He then says to the little red hat, "Don't worry, I'll help you." Scene shifts. Jeong Cheon glares angrily at the Haegwang guys in front and says, "Just because I lost once, you want to kick me out of Haegwang?" But as Jeong Cheon keeps complaining, a hand from behind crushes him down. The person who came is Haegwang executive Gangrak Bae. Before Jeong Cheon can explain, Gangrak Bae says, "Do you know how much loss we suffered because of you alone? I told you before not to make things too big, and this time it's also because you unnecessarily provoked the Hanguljo family that things got messed up." Hearing this, Jeong Cheon immediately gets angry and threatens the guy in front, saying if they just kick him out like this, he'll leak Haegwang's secrets. But the next second, he gets knocked unconscious by Gangrak Bae's punch. Then the man says, "Jeong Cheon, you've crossed the line. Want to leak secrets? Go leak them to the King of Hell." He then calls his subordinates to dispose of Jeong Cheon. Then another Hagwang executive, Zhang Minhan, says, "You'd better be careful, you might expose yourself if you're unlucky." Hearing this, Gangrak Bey says, "I see you're not too worried about this matter either. Don't you also agree with us eliminating the Hangul-Zhou family?" Zhang Minhan responds, "Of course. I personally witnessed their threat to Hagwang. Also, we just received a commission to eliminate the Hangul-Zhou family." But Zhang Minhan puzzledly asks Gangrak Bey, "Why do you oppose the plan to eliminate the Hangul-Zhou family?" Gangrak Bey says, "I just think eliminating them isn't cost-effective, it's more cost-effective to use them. We can test them one more time. We can eliminate those guys anytime once we make up our minds. What they don't know yet is, I've already sent an undercover agent to infiltrate their interior." On the other side, at the pizza shop, Dajun is introducing Inhuan, whom he met today, to Songho. Inhuan also learns from Dajun that Songho wants to run away from home. He immediately starts dissuading him. "You absolutely mustn't do that. Going out is just suffering. None of those things you imagine exist." Then he points to Dajun and says, "Did this guy tell you to run away from home when you feel too tired? That's because he's from the Hangul-Zhou family. The Hangul-Zhou family is different from others. They never bully people, but the people who run away from home in this area are all trash." But the next second he says seriously, "If you really want to run away from home, then join Hagwang." Hearing this, Dajun is immediately dumbfounded, then starts arguing with the guy in front. "What the hell are you talking about?" Inhuan retorts, "You haven't lived on the street, so you don't understand the situation. If you want to run away from home and live well, you have to join Hagwang." At this moment, Songho interrupts them. "Is there really only that one way?" Inhuan asks Songho, "What's your real reason for running away from home?" Songho then talks about it. Actually, he once had a harmonious family, but his mother died in an accident, and his father was deeply affected. But in order to be happy, his father made many efforts. To give him a complete family, his father chose to remarry. The stepmother initially loved him like her own son, but the good times didn't last long. After his little sister was born, everything changed, and he became a redundant existence in the family. He would get beaten by his stepmother from time to time, and the stepmother also began to drive a wedge between him and his father. He wanted to explain everything to his father. But in his view, his father, who had been working hard all along, was only happiest when he was with his stepmother and sister. So he didn't want to break this happiness and decided to run away from home. Maybe without him, their family would be happy and harmonious. Hearing this, both Dajun and Inhuan don't know what to say, because you can't judge others without experiencing their hardships. So in Dajun's view, he actually can't advise from his position of having already run away from home. But he still says to Songho, if your father truly cares about you, he wouldn't want you to run away from home. Also, don't just think about your father, think about yourself too. After listening to Dajun's words, Inhuan also speaks up. Dajun's method is better. If the situation doesn't improve in the future, I have money I stole here. You can use this money to rent a place yourself. Hearing Dajun and Inhuan's words, Songho also lowers his head to thank them both. So Songho asks Inhuan Hyung about what you said about your father earlier, what do you plan to do? Inhuan answers, I'm still considering whether to fight Hagwang. Dajun thinks worriedly, maybe I should consider talking to Hangul Hyung and the others. But the next second Songho says, how about we go find the person who made the commission and ask him to cancel it? Hearing this, both of them are stunned. In the evening, Dajun prepares to say goodbye to the two. Inhuan asks why Dajun is helping them like this. Dajun says, since we're all people living on the streets now, why distinguish between you and me? And I think you two are both good people. Hearing this, the two smile. Then Inhuan suddenly hugs Dajun and says, Dajun, you're such a good person. After chatting for a while, Dajun leaves. But after Dajun leaves, unbeknownst to him, one of them reports to Hagwang executive Gangrak Bey. The phone rings with beeping sounds. A voice says, hello, it's me. From my observation, this Dajun guy is just a bleeding heart. Do I need to keep watching him? The voice on the other end says, keep observing. If he has no use value, just eliminate him. Scene shifts. To help Songho and Inhuan, these two runaway guys. Dajun proactively asks Hangul-Zhou family members for their help. The next second, he's met with Dayup Cha's outburst. Are you out of your mind? Do you think we're righteous good people? Song Bin-ha also says to Dajun, you need to distinguish that their running away from home is different from the merchants in this area who are in trouble. Gayong Hong also talks about her experience. Dajun still doesn't understand this area well enough. Because you ran away from home and joined the Hangul-Zhou family. But actually, many runaway guys in this area are very dangerous. The first runaway from home crew I joined almost sold me to a nightclub. But fortunately, I ran fast and met the Hangul-Zhou family. Dajun still feels that the two guys he met don't seem like bad people. But Hangul-Zhou says, maybe you're right, but on these streets, the only people you can trust are us. That night, Dajun reflects on today's conversation with Hangul-Zhou and the others, knowing they're looking out for him. But kind-hearted Dajun still wants to help them. So the next day, He and Inhwan and Songho find the guy who commissioned Haegwang to use violence against Inhwan's dad. He's also his dad's colleague and district delegate Hyung-Yu Kim. The group is discussing how to get him to cancel the commission. But Hyung-Yu Kim then walks into a nightclub, just as Daejun is looking at how they can't get in. The next second, the group appears inside the nightclub. It turns out Inhwan pulled out several fake IDs to help them sneak in. The group is quite surprised, but Inhwan says these are essential equipment for runaways. So the group starts searching for the official who just came in. In another private room, Hyung-Yu Kim is looking lustfully at two girls. He seems to be exploring life with the two girls beside him. But at this moment, one of the girls beside him doesn't seem very sensible and doesn't finish the drink Hyung-Yu Kim handed her. What greets her is a big slap from Hyung-Yu Kim. The woman is instantly slapped with a red face. But Hyung-Yu Kim is already furious at this point. He immediately kicks all the women out of the private room, and Daejun's group happens to encounter this scene. Then Hyung-Yu Kim's angry roar comes from the room, "Hurry up and call your manager over." Daejun's group also learns from the women that the person inside is indeed the guy they're looking for. As Hyung-Yu Kim keeps cursing, Daejun's group walks into the private room. Hyung-Yu Kim, who's currently furious, sees the group in front of him and curses. "Where did you little bastards come from? Get lost quickly." Inhwan looks at the man in front and says, "I know about you commissioning Haegwang to use violence against others. If you don't quickly contact them to cancel it, I'll spread this matter." Hearing this, Hyung-Yu Kim is dismissive of Inhwan's words. He's a district official in this area, so how could he be afraid because of a few words from a wet-behind-the-ears kid? He then says, "Are you enemies of Haegwang, or did Byung-Shul hire you?" But that idiot probably doesn't have that kind of brain. Hearing this, Inhwan immediately gets angry. He grabs Hyung-Yu Kim's collar. But before he can act, he's stopped by thugs from behind. And the person who arrives is the nightclub's manager Park. Seeing Manager Park's arrival, Hyung-Yu Kim immediately shakes off Inhwan's hand and calls for them to deal with Daejun and the others. Seeing the fierce-looking guys in front, Inhwan and Songho are immediately scared and trembling all over. The two are still discussing what to do, when Manager Park throws a punch at Inhwan. With a thud, Manager Park gets knocked down. Daejun appears in front of the two. "You both hide behind me." Seeing Daejun's appearance, the two ask, "Daejun, can you handle this?" Daejun responds, "A man can't say he can't handle it," then assumes a fighting stance. Manager Park is also helped up by his subordinates. From his subordinate, he learns that Daejun's group used fake IDs at the front desk to get in. Little does he know this is a pervert that even other perverts would call a pervert. To make a woman pay back her father's debt, he actually demands the woman accompany clients for a whole day. If he encounters clients he doesn't like, he'll cripple them. And he boasts that you shouldn't come to nightclubs if you don't have enough money. Having never been beaten since childhood, he was actually hit by a young punk in front of him. This completely enrages Manager Park. He immediately calls his subordinates to cripple Daejun and bring him before him. Facing the siege of two thugs, Daejun hurriedly goes on the defensive. Then seizing the opportunity, he lands a left jab on the man's face in front. The other thug, seeing Daejun's reckless fighting style, hurriedly blocks with his arms, but the man has been fighting in nightclubs for years after all. After defending, he throws a straight punch at Daejun, which Daejun also blocks with his arms. Both sides fight evenly matched. Just as Daejun seizes the opportunity to step on the man's foot in front, and wants to punch the man's face. With a bang, Daejun gets kicked away by Manager Park, then crashes heavily onto the table. At this moment, Manager Park lifts his leather shoe and kicks hard at Daejun. Daejun is instantly beaten until his eyes roll back by Manager Park. Manager Park calls his subordinates to grab Daejun. With a crash of the bottle, Manager Park grabs half a broken bottle to attack Daejun's face. At this moment, Daejun finally realizes he was careless. But suddenly the bottle in the man's hand gets knocked away. And the subordinate holding Daejun also gets knocked down by Songho with one punch. Songho appears in front of Daejun. Songho trembles and says, "I want to fight." Inhwan, seeing Songho enter the battle, also appears beside Songho. The situation instantly becomes 3 against 3. But the next second, Daejun pushes the two aside. "You two haven't fought before, just fight one person. I'll take on two." Both sides are about to engage in battle. Manager Park first kicks at Daejun, who hurriedly dodges. Daejun also knows that fighting 1 against 2 is still very taxing, but the opponents seem to be underestimating him. But the more they underestimate him, the better his chances become. Daejun seizes a gap to dodge, and lands an uppercut on the man's face in front. Manager Park, seeing his fallen subordinate, also knows he can't underestimate the guy in front anymore. But the next second, Daejun fiercely attacks Manager Park. However, the attack is instantly neutralized by Manager Park. What greets Daejun is a fierce strike from Manager Park. Daejun is instantly beaten until he spits up stomach acid. Manager Park now knows Daejun wants to attack his chin, so he quickly blocks Daejun's attack with his arms. But due to the difference in strength, Daejun takes another left jab from Manager Park. Dajun also seizes this opportunity to counterattack. As Dajun closes the distance, his arms gather strength. Just as both sides' attacks are about to hit each other, Dajun fiercely punches Manager Park's stomach, landing a heavy blow to Manager Park's chest. Manager Park spits up stomach acid and his eyes roll back. Manager Park tries to get up and strike back, but what greets him are several more straight punches from Dajun. With a bang, Manager Park falls down. Dajun hurriedly looks toward Inhwan and the others. Under Inhwan's surprised gaze, Songo has already knocked down the man, while still acting like he doesn't know what's happening. Looking at this scene, Dajun is also deeply surprised. Whether it's part-time work or fighting, this kid can do so well on his first try. Then the group surrounds District Delegate Hyung-Yu Kim and starts interrogating him. But at this moment, Manager Park actually gets up from the ground again, looking vicious. Manager Park grabs a broken bottle and stabs fiercely at the group. Fortunately, Songo saves Dajun in time. Dajun immediately punches Manager Park hard in the face. Manager Park is completely knocked down, just as Dajun wonders where the blood on his body came from. He checks himself and finds no major injuries. But the next second, under the horrified gazes of the two, drops of blood fall from an arm. Songo has a bottle stuck in his back. With a thud, he collapses in front of Dajun and the other. Seeing this scene, Inhwan is instantly frozen with shock. Dajun hurriedly wakes him up, then calls for him to quickly take Songo to the hospital, while Dajun grabs District Delegate Hyung-Yu Kim nearby and starts interrogating him. Several hours later, arriving at the hospital, Dajun looks at Songo on the hospital bed and asks how he's doing. Songo says, "The injured area just keeps throbbing with pain." Dajun looks at Songo in front and says, "Songo, why did you block that for me when it was so dangerous?" Songo says, "Actually, I don't know either. I've always thought that. I can't even take care of myself, let alone others, but this time my body unconsciously blocked it for you." After chatting for a while, the two leave the hospital. Dajun looks at Inhwan in front and says, "This time the expenses must have cost quite a bit." Inhwan says, "Anyway, this money came from the commission client's deposit, so it's fine." Dajun looks at Inhwan in front and says thanks. Inhwan then asks about how he dealt with the guy in the private room. Dajun says, "I already learned from that guy that it turns out your dad found out he was embezzling the district council's budget. To warn your dad, he commissioned Haegwang to do this. After his confession, if he wants to cancel the commission, he needs to meet with Haegwang people and we have to go with him too." Both of them know this matter isn't that simple. But just in case, Dajun also got evidence of his corruption. Inhwan says, "Dajun, maybe I should go by myself for this matter. I don't want to drag you down anymore." Dajun says, "Things have come to this point. You can only trust me to the end now." At this moment, Dajun doesn't know that Hangul-jo is observing Dajun's every move from a corner nearby. Time comes to the next day. Inside the nightclub, Haegwang executive Jong Min-han arrives. He comes to a door. Inside the room lie several guys who were beaten down by Dajun yesterday. Then Manager Park starts reporting to Jong Min-han. At this moment, the voice on the other end of the phone also says to the man, "These guys' hearts are just too soft. Maybe this is the weakness of the Hangul-jo family." Jong Min-han says, "So what do you plan to do with Dajun?" Gangrak Bey says Haegwang doesn't need that kind of person, and Gangrak Bey seems to be waiting for a certain big fish to take the bait. At the same time, Dajun, Inhwan, and Hyung-Yu Kim also arrived at the agreed location. Seeing that Hyung-Yu Kim had brought them to this desolate wilderness, Inhwan immediately confronted him, asking if Hyung-Yu Kim was pulling some kind of trick. But Hyung-Yu Kim brushed him off, saying, "Relax, you have evidence of my corruption. I can't run away anyway, but you also need to keep your promise. Once I cancel this commission, you'll destroy the evidence of my corruption." Then the group arrived at the designated meeting spot. Hyung-Yu Kim went forward to find Gangrak Bey to cancel the commission, while Dajun and Inhwan hid nearby, watching everything unfold. Just then, a figure appeared before Hyung-Yu Kim, someone with mud-covered feet, dragging a shovel in his hands. This scared Hyung-Yu Kim so much that he immediately sat down. The man then said, "Hyung-Yu Kim, we meet again." Dajun, watching from the side, felt immense pressure and just wanted to leave as soon as Hyung-Yu Kim canceled the commission. Gangrak Bey then said to Hyung-Yu Kim, "Sorry I'm late, I had a bit of work left to finish. I was going to have my subordinates handle it. But the guy we're dealing with this time is someone I particularly care about, so I decided to handle it personally." He then asked Hyung-Yu Kim, "I heard you want to cancel this commission?" Hyung-Yu Kim replied, "Yes, I think we've given them sufficient warning, so it's no longer necessary." Gangrak Bey then said, "That's fine. You just need to pay the remaining money." Hyung-Yu Kim asked in confusion, "I'm canceling the commission, so why do I still need to pay?" But remembering that his leverage was still in Dajun's hands, Hyung-Yu Kim agreed. However, the next second, Gangrak Bey said, "Actually, besides that district chief, other people also know about your corruption." Hyung-Yu Kim was shocked and asked, "What do you want? Are you threatening me now?" Gangrak Bey replied nonchalantly, "That depends on how you see it. I just want to make a deal with you." If you can regularly give us a portion of your corruption money, we'll become your hands and feet. Hearing this, Hyung-Yu Kim said, "You mean you want me to pay protection money? But what about my corruption issue? There are still several people who know about it. If they expose it, I'm finished." But to Hyung-Yu Kim's shock, Gangrak Bae revealed, "From now on, besides us knowing about this, any third party who knows will disappear. But even though you cancel the commission, we'll still take care of District Chief Byung Chol. And that guy in the corner who threatened you with the corruption evidence? We'll deal with him too." Then, to Dajun and In-hwan's surprise, they found themselves surrounded. What Dajun and In-hwan didn't know was that they had already fallen step by step into Gangrak Bae's trap. Gangrak Bae said, "Bury these two rats for me." Then a group of subordinates on motorcycles swarmed toward Dajun and In-hwan. Dajun quickly pushed In-hwan out of the way. Facing the overwhelming numbers of Haegwang, Dajun could only take a beating. Meanwhile, In-hwan couldn't even last 3 minutes before being taken down by 2 subordinates. Then Dajun was surrounded and attacked by multiple subordinates. Dajun quickly grabbed a stone from the ground and threw it hard at a nearby motorcycle rider. Then Dajun swiftly picked up the iron rod that had fallen from his attack, and with a sharp swing, accurately pierced it into the tire of another motorcycle rider. Before the thug could get up, Dajun delivered a powerful kick to his chin, then immediately created distance. Dajun then charged toward Hyung-Yu Kim, hoping to use him as leverage to escape. But just then, a shovel flew through the air and blocked Dajun's path. Gangrak Bae slowly walked toward Dajun, saying, "Hangil-jo's family, Dajun, your skills are pretty good. I was going to let my subordinates handle you, but it seems that would take some time. Let me deal with you personally." Dajun felt immense pressure facing this man, because the aura this man emanated was completely different from anyone he'd encountered before. If he lost here, not only would he be finished, but In-hwan would be too. Before Dajun could think of a strategy, Gangrak Bae threw a punch at him. Dajun thought he could block it with his arm, but the next second, Dajun was sent flying by Gangrak Bae's punch, crashing into a tree. Being knocked away, Dajun realized how vast the power gap was between him and this man. He hadn't expected this man to be even stronger than Jeong-chan, whom he'd encountered before. Before Dajun could stand up, Gangrak Bae's next punch came crashing down toward his head. Dajun quickly dodged to the side, but with a cracking sound, Gangrak Bae's punch still landed heavily on Dajun's leg. Dajun's leg actually cracked, causing him to scream in pain. Then Gangrak Bae grabbed Dajun by the hair and dragged him forward step by step. What awaited Dajun was the fire pit ahead. Gangrak Bae said, "I'll get back at you one by one for what you and Hangil-jo's family did." And the burn scar on Gyeong-cheon's face. "Every time I see that guy's face, it breaks my heart, so I need to get payback from you." Just as the fire pit and his face were getting closer, the desire to survive suddenly exploded in Dajun's mind. Before Gangrak Bae could react, Dajun grabbed a burning log from the fire pit and threw it at Gangrak Bae. Then Dajun rushed toward the nearby shovel. Dajun grabbed it and said, "I can't just die like this!" With a clang, the two faced each other. Gangrak Bae had actually blocked Dajun's attack with his bare hand. Then, to Dajun's shock, he broke the shovel in half, then delivered another punch to Dajun's face. With a thud, Dajun collapsed to the ground. Seeing Dajun's will to fight even when facing death, Gangrak Bae had some different thoughts. "I was going to finish you off personally, but seeing you like this, I want to give you a chance. Join us at Haegwang. Of course, you don't have a choice now. I won't let you join Haegwang immediately, so you need to prove yourself." Then he had a subordinate throw someone from the trunk in front of Dajun. The next second, he threw a shovel in front of Dajun. Before Dajun could ask what this was about, Gangrak Bae said, "Bury him." Dajun was shocked. Faced with this choice between life and death, what would Dajun do? But the next second, the man on the ground revealed his face. It was Manager Park, who had previously stabbed Song-o. Gangrak Bae said again, "This man has betrayed Haegwang and has been conducting corrupt deals behind our backs. If you eliminate him, you and your friend can live. Otherwise, you know what happens." After internal struggle, Dajun raised the shovel. With a clang, the shovel struck the ground in front of Manager Park. After making his choice, Dajun still chose kindness. He didn't want to lose his conscience. Then with a slap, Dajun was knocked unconscious by Gangrak Bae's punch. Then, accompanied by waves of pain, feeling cold all over, with a taste of dirt in his mouth, Dajun woke up from the dirt pile. 3 thugs were systematically shoveling dirt onto his body. Am I going to die like this? I still have so many things left unfinished. But just then, the thugs started falling one by one. Hangil-jo appeared and greeted Dajun. "Dajun, are you happy to see me?" Then Dajun was rescued by Hangil-jo. Dajun looked at Hangil-jo as if reborn, but just then the surrounding thugs noticed something was wrong and rushed over. They immediately grabbed their weapons and attacked Hangil-jo. But the next second, Hangil-jo caught their weapons, and they couldn't move. Hangil-jo said, "Have you ever kissed a shoe sole?" Then delivered a kick to the thug's face. With a thud, the thug fell, and the surrounding subordinates began to realize something was wrong. This guy looked exactly like Hangul Joe. Before the thugs could react, Hangul Joe charged at two thugs like a fierce tiger. He kicked one thug away and declared, "I am Hangul Joe." What followed was Hangul Joe's intense offensive. One thug was already stunned, standing there with his mouth wide open. What came at him was Hangul Joe's powerful kick. Just like that, several thugs were easily handled by Hangul Joe. Then Dajun said, "Brother Hangul Joe, I'm so happy to see you." But just then, a voice rang out. Inhuan, covering his mouth, looked at Hangul Joe like a little fanboy and said, "It's actually Hangul Joe." Dajun looked at this guy and felt speechless. He had just crawled out of a pit and was already so energetic. Then he asked Hangul Joe, "Brother, how did you find this place?" Hangul Joe replied, "Recently, you've been doing strange things without saying anything. So I started secretly following you. Of course, I wasn't just being nosy. I took care of the lookouts those thugs had posted in these mountains, but then you disappeared. Then I heard motorcycle engines roaring, so I followed the sound." Hangul Joe then asked Dajun what he was doing here. Dajun pointed at Inhuan and said, "His father is in some danger, so I came to help him." Then he asked, "Brother Hangul Joe, where did that big Hagwang executive and district official Hyungyu Kim go? Did you defeat them?" Hangul Joe looked confused and said, "I didn't see any other guys when I got here." Then Dajun grabbed one of the fallen thugs and asked, "Where did your executive and district official Hyungyu Kim go?" The thug said he didn't know. He was just ordered to bury them. Then Gangrak Bey drove away. The thug then struggled and said, "Let me go. I was just following Gangrak Bey's orders." When Hangul Joe heard the thug mention Gangrak Bey, things became troublesome. Then Hangul Joe pulled Dajun aside and pointed at the thug, saying, "Listen carefully. When you go back, tell Gangrak Bey this. You did indeed bury Dajun alive as ordered, and you never saw me today." The thug said fearfully, "If Gangrak Bey finds out, I'm dead." As soon as he finished speaking, Hangul Joe threw him into the pit. Hangul Joe said, "You mean you're only afraid of Gangrak Bey, not me, Hangul Joe?" Then, to Dajun and Inhuan's surprise, Hangul Joe finished handling everything. The scene changed, and as soon as they came down the mountain, Inhuan was taking photos with Hangul Joe. Then he asked Hangul Joe to sign his arm. He was truly a little fanboy. Then Dajun said, "Brother, if I want to save his father, I have to defeat Gangrak Bey. I know this sounds presumptuous, but brother, can you help me?" But Inhuan said, No need. I can't let brother Hangul Joe get involved in this matter. Maybe I can handle it alone." Hearing this, Hangul Joe said, "Is that so? Perfect then." Then he pulled Dajun aside. Hangul Joe said seriously to Dajun, "Don't provoke Gangrak Bey anymore, and don't interfere in Inhuan's affairs. Gangrak Bey thinks you're both dead anyway." But Dajun asked in confusion, "Brother, why? That guy would be nothing to you." Hangul Joe replied, "I can't touch Gangrak Bey. If I make a move on him, this won't just be a personal grudge anymore. Some things aren't as simple as you think. This is for everyone's good, understand? This world doesn't care about your sympathy." Dajun fell silent, then asked, "Then why did you help me initially? What's the difference between me and Inhuan?" Hangul Joe couldn't really answer this question, as it was indeed difficult. He turned around and said indifferently, "Do whatever you want then. But I'm telling you, I won't participate in this matter." Then Hangul Joe left with his hands behind his back. The next day, Dajun stood alone on the balcony thinking about how to defeat Gangrak Bey. But thinking about the power gap between them, he felt helpless. But thinking carefully, how did that guy know where we were? We had been monitoring Hyungyu Kim's every move. Suddenly, his phone rang. The caller was actually Songho. Dajun asked how his health was. Songho said he heard from Inhuan that they encountered a very dangerous guy in the mountains and almost got into big trouble. Dajun replied, "Yes, he's more dangerous than I imagined. Songho, don't get involved in this matter." But Songho said, "But I want to help brother Inhuan." Just then, a voice interrupted Dajun's call. Teak Kim asked who Dajun was talking to. Dajun quickly whispered and hung up on Songho. Then Dajun said, "Haha, I was just chatting with a coworker." Teak Kim said ominously, "Is that so?" Then threw a punch at Dajun. Dajun was a bit confused by this punch. Teak Kim shook his bandaged arm and said, "I heard from brother Hangul Joe that you want to fight Haegwang executives. Haegwang is one thing, but Haegwang executives are completely different. There are no ordinary guys among Haegwang executives. If you want to be qualified to fight Haegwang executives, you at least need to be able to beat me, a patient with an injured arm." To Dajun's surprise, another voice rang out, "No, that's not enough. Before fighting Haegwang executives, you need to at least beat us. Gaeung Hong specialty, wrestling." With a thud, Dajun was heavily slammed to the ground. First round, Gaeung Hong wins after resting for half an hour. Dajun faced his second opponent, Seongbin Ha. This time facing Seongbin, Dajun wouldn't underestimate his opponent like before, as Dajun got into fighting stance. And through a punch, Seongbin quickly created distance. Dajun's punches always seemed about to connect, but Seongbin dodged them all. But the next second came Seongbin's counterattack. Another punch. Then a punch to Dajun's abdomen. Dajun immediately collapsed to the ground. Second round, Seongbin-ha wins. After another rest. Third round, opponent Taek Kim. But before it even started, Dajun could already feel an aura similar to Gangrak Bei's from Taek Kim. But Dajun had no way back now, so he charged at Taek Kim. With several thuds, Dajun's attacks landed on Taek Kim. But no matter how hard Dajun hit him, Taek Kim remained unmoved in his defense. Taek Kim said, "You're hitting pretty hard. Looks like your strength has improved quite a bit, Dajun." As soon as he finished speaking, Dajun was kicked away by Taek Kim. Dajun was instantly beaten until he foamed at the mouth. Third round, Taek Kim Muay Thai wins. The final opponent was Daeupcha. Daeupcha threw the first punch. Dajun counterattacked, but the next second, Daeupcha sidestepped and grabbed Dajun's arm. Daeupcha, specialty, judo. Then came an over-the-shoulder throw. Dajun was heavily thrown to the ground. Daeupcha said, "Dajun, is that it? You want to defeat Gangrak Bei with this level of skill? Have you ever thought that what you think is right might actually drag us down? That's what happened when Jeong Cheon kidnapped me. Taek Kim advised me to be careful, but I made a mistake I couldn't bear the consequences of, putting all of us in danger. Do you want to repeat my mistake again? Do you think you can defeat Gangrak Bei alone with your current strength?" Hearing this, Dajun finally realized the gap in his abilities. Then he said, "All right, I understand. I'll give up the idea of confronting Gangrak Bei." Just when Daeupcha thought Dajun had come to his senses, Dajun continued, "Of course, I mean for now. Like you, I can't turn a blind eye to people who need help. When I helped Na-un, I realized that my help could actually change someone's fate. And this is what I want to do after my revenge." Everyone was speechless. Then Taek Kim said, "Then as you wish, I'll make you strong enough to face Gangrak Bei. Of course your current strength won't do. Since you have this determination now, I'll trust you. Also, we'll participate in the duel with Gangrak Bei." Dajun was surprised and said, "Why so sudden? Weren't you against me doing this?" Taek Kim replied, "Actually, this matter was unavoidable from the beginning. Brother Hangeljo also told me that Gangrak Bei is actually testing our Hangeljo family right now. If we don't take action this time, we'll become passive like last time with Jeong Cheon. And Brother Hangeljo can't act for certain reasons. So this time, I'll lead you guys to take them down. So our fights with you were also tests to see if you could act with us. So you need to be prepared. We'll raise your strength to match Haegwang executives. Oh, and one more thing. Brother Hangeljo said their people have already infiltrated our surroundings. The most dangerous person right now is you, Dajun. Because just last night, Brother Hangeljo also discovered that one of Inhwan and Songho is a Hagwang spy." Then Dajun was brought to the warehouse below the Hangeljo family building. Hangeljo was waiting there. Dajun asked, "Brother Hangeljo, why do you say one of them is a spy? I don't understand." Hangeljo slowly opened the warehouse door. What appeared before them was a man tied up. This was Haegwang's informant who kept begging, "Let me go, I've already told you everything I know." Then Hangeljo said, "Dajun, you ask me how I know there's a spy around you. Because after we came back from the mountain last night, I felt something was strange. I was thinking on the rooftop when I discovered this guy monitoring us. From him I learned that Gangrak Bei has been watching us, and Gangrak Bei actually knew you came down alive from the mountain, which I found strange. I had clearly given those guys on the mountain a death order, saying you were already dead up there. So I called to ask those guys, and they said that before they went to report, Gangrak Bei already knew about it. But it seems Gangrak Bei got the information from someone around us. When I asked them who that person was, even they didn't know the spy's identity. So the conclusion is, whoever knew you came down alive from the mountain is the spy." Dajun was shocked, because the only people who knew he was alive besides the Hangeljo family members were Inhwan and Songho. But this sudden revelation made Dajun feel a sense of betrayal. He began to not know whom to trust, because both of them had life-or-death friendships with him. Seeing Dajun looking somewhat lost, Hangeljo said, "I can understand how you feel right now. You should understand the principle I told you before. In street life, there's no one worth trusting." Just as Dajun was feeling lost, his phone showed a missed call from Inhwan. The text message said his father was missing again. He needed to find him urgently, and Songho was with him now. But looking at the message on his screen, Dajun froze. He didn't know whether to trust them now. Daeupcha, seeing Dajun's phone call, wanted to hang up for him, but Taek Kim stopped him, saying, "Let him choose." Dajun ultimately chose to hang up the phone in front of everyone and put his phone in his pocket, saying, "Just like you said, in street life, there really isn't anyone trustworthy. I apologize to you all, I was too weak. Please give me strict training so I can face Gangrak Bei as soon as possible." Meanwhile, Inhwan, who couldn't get through on the phone, also had a dark expression. 2 days later, at Gangrak Bei's base, several Haegwang subordinates in the room seemed to be engaged in some violent activity. What appeared before them was the barely breathing district chief Byong Chol, Inhwan's father. Byung-chul said, "I won't collude with you like Hyung-yu Kim to become a corrupt official." But just then, Gangrak Bae appeared. When Byung-chul saw Gangrak Bae, he kicked him over, which fell into the water pool behind. Gangrak Bae then had his subordinates pull him out and continued torturing Byung-chul. Just then, a subordinate rushed to Gangrak Bae shouting, "This is bad! Hang Il-jo family members are attacking." 2 days earlier, Dajun's group had extracted information about Gangrak Bae's base location from Hagwang's informant. From him, they learned that Gangrak Bae's base had 3 floors, with his office on the 3rd floor, room 301. Entering through the main central entrance, go to the left staircase to the 3rd floor to find his office. Each floor had about 10 Hagwang members waiting for criminal orders. 2 days later, Dajun's group arrived at Gangrak Bae's base. Dayup-cha, Seongbin, Dajun, Gyeong-hong, and Tae Kim appeared before the subordinates. Seeing everyone approaching, several thugs also showed fierce expressions. The battle immediately began. 2 thugs charged at Dajun first. Dajun delivered a left hook followed by an uppercut, and both subordinates fell. On the other side, Gaeong grabbed a subordinate and slammed him into another subordinate. Tae Kim then delivered a powerful kick to both their faces. Meanwhile, Seongbin quickly created distance and circled behind a thug, then delivered a straight punch. Just then, Dajun was completely unaware that a thug was launching a sneak attack from behind. Fortunately, Dayup-cha appeared in time with a straight punch to knock him down. Then Dayup-cha patted Dajun, "Watch your back when you fight." Dajun thanked him. Then Tae Kim pointed to the side. "Everyone, pay attention, that's the passage to the 2nd floor." Then everyone charged toward the passage. The thugs who saw the Hang Il-jo family members approaching actually made way for them. Dayup-cha said, "What's the meaning of this?" A thug replied, "We can't beat you guys, so why fight?" Then he started begging, saying, "We're just Gangrak Bae's lackeys. If you want to find him, go directly." Tae Kim and Dayup-cha were speechless. Just as this thug was secretly pleased, thinking the Hang Il-jo family was indeed naive. The next second, he got beaten up. This confused the thug. "Isn't your target Gangrak Bae? I even made way for you, but you still hit me?" Dayup-cha said, "I think you misunderstood. Our target isn't just Gangrak Bae. Our goal is to take down all of you." Then everyone knocked down all the thugs in front of them. Meanwhile, a thug grabbed by Seongbin's collar finally realized these guys were completely different from the rumors. Then everyone completely dealt with all the thugs on the 1st floor and headed to the 2nd floor. At this time, in office 301, Gangrak Bae was watching everything through the surveillance room. Seeing that Hang Il-jo himself hadn't appeared, he felt somewhat pleased. The group that had just reached the corner leading from the 2nd to 3rd floor saw that the staircase was blocked by debris. At this time, the Hagwang thugs on the 2nd floor had already surrounded them. Just then, Tae Kim noticed that another staircase on the other side had people coming down. This meant the other staircase was clear. They needed to fight their way through from this side to that side. Then everyone charged at the thugs in front of them. But as everyone began attacking the Hagwang thugs, Dajun was fighting when the guy in front of him suddenly started running away. Several thugs nearby also retreated, seemingly not wanting to fight. Seeing these cowardly guys, Dayup-cha got impatient. "Why aren't you fighting? It's too late to run now." These thugs didn't seem to want to fight, but also didn't want to make way. Tae Kim finally realized that these guys were deliberately stalling for time. Then he called for everyone to quickly deal with the trouble in front of them. But just then, danger approached. Tae Kim's body was instantly slashed with dozens of cuts. Just as Dayup-cha turned to check on Tae Kim, a hand had already silently approached. A liver punch hit Dayup-cha hard. Dayup-cha was instantly beaten until he foamed at the mouth. What appeared before them were 2 extremely dangerous guys. Hagwang executive candidates, Bullied and Yeongnam Choi. The 2 walked toward the fallen Dayup-cha. Yeongnam Choi was about to attack Dayup-cha again. Just as Yeongnam Choi's attack was about to hit Dayup-cha's face, Dajun appeared in front of Dayup-cha and kicked Yeongnam Choi away. Then Dajun extended his arm to Dayup-cha and said, "Are you okay, brother? Let me help you up." The friendship between the 2 had grown stronger, and Dayup-cha acknowledged that Dajun's strength had improved. Yeongnam Choi, who had been knocked down by Dajun, gritted his teeth and said, "Give me 2 minutes. I'll finish them off." Then he charged at Dajun's group. Bullied nearby immediately called for the surrounding subordinates to swarm them. Yeongnam Choi continuously threw multiple attacks at Dajun. The highly threatening attacks created terrifying whooshing sounds as they struck near Dajun, but no matter how fierce the attack, if you can't hit your target, it's completely meaningless. Facing Yeongnam Choi's fierce assault, Dajun also began looking for the right opportunity. Dajun seized the opening and suddenly grabbed Yeongnam Choi's arm, using the results of his previous training. He executed a shoulder throw. With a loud crash, Yeongnam Choi was slammed hard to the ground by Dajun. Dayup-cha and the others watching from the side saw Dajun's technique. This kid really didn't waste their training. Just when Dajun thought he had taken down the Hagwang executive, the man before his eyes was completely unharmed, Haegwang executives really shouldn't be underestimated. The next second, Yeongnam Choi launched another attack on Dajun. Dajun also felt he could hold his own against this Haegwang executive. Seeing Dajun's strength, Taek Kim couldn't help but smile with relief. Meanwhile, Gaeyoung Hong, Seongbin Ha, and Daeyup Cha were quickly dealing with the remaining small fry. After experiencing that surprise attack, Taek Kim also began to get serious. "Your knife can only leave a scratch on me," he said, then landed a heavy punch on Ba Li. Hit and knocked down, Ba Li began to realize that the Hanguljo family members seemed much more capable than the rumors suggested. But Taek Kim, who had been calm just moments before. The next second, his arm's plaster bandage was sliced open by a dagger that pierced straight through his arm. Taek Kim hadn't expected this man to launch a counterattack in such a short time. Just as Taek Kim refocused and assumed a fighting stance, Ba Li actually abandoned his fight with Taek Kim. Then he said, "I don't want to beat you. Beating you would be way too much trouble. After all, I just need to follow Big Brother's orders and keep you busy. Besides, this building will soon be swarming with Haegwang executives. The one who takes you down doesn't necessarily have to be me." Hearing this, Taek Kim was shocked. No wonder these guys didn't want to fight them from the start. But the next second, Ba Li charged straight into the crowd. The blade flashed past Gaeyoung and Seongbin Ha. Gaeyoung and Seongbin instantly had cuts slashed across their arms and legs. Then, while Taek Kim and Daeyup Cha were blocked by a group of thugs, he added 2 more wounds to their bodies. This man had single-handedly stopped the entire Hanguljo family in their tracks. Daeyup Cha also noticed these guys had blocked the path they'd taken to get up here. Taek Kim, who had originally wanted a quick victory, saw the current situation and knew it was trouble. If they got held up here, the consequences would be unthinkable. Then Taek Kim signaled to Seongbin. Seongbin nodded in response. Meanwhile, Yeongnam Choi looked at Taek Kim, who had just been blocked, and let out a mocking laugh. Then he threw a punch at Dajun in front of him, just as Dajun was struggling to defend and wanted to use that move he'd planned for Gangrak Bae. The next second, Taek Kim's flying kick knocked Yeongnam Choi aside. Then he called to Dajun to run toward the stairs leading to the 3rd floor. Everyone began to break through. Ba Li and Yeongnam Choi also moved to intercept them, just as they were about to close in. Songbin and Gaeyoung struck from the side with punches and kicks at the 2 men. With Songbin and Gaeyoung holding them back, everyone rushed toward the 3rd floor staircase. Dajun looked worriedly at Gaeyoung and Seongbin, who hadn't followed, but Taek Kim said, "Don't worry, just run." When Dajun turned to look at the 2, they showed him reassuring smiles that said, "Don't worry, we've got this." "Understanding," Dajun said, "from now on, we need to focus all our strength on defeating Gangrak Bae." Ba Li's face darkened seeing the group break through. Nothing was going according to his plan. He then called out to Yeongnam Choi, suggesting they compete to see who could take down more people. Ba Li was clearly furious at this point. Meanwhile, Gaeyoung and Seongbin also made a bet about who could finish off their opponent first to claim the other's part-time job pay. Hearing this, both Ba Li and Yeongnam Choi's faces showed even more anger. Both sides charged at each other. The group of Dajun and others who reached the 3rd floor appeared at the door of Gangrak Bae's room 301, just as everyone prepared themselves. Dajun turned the door handle with a click, but the next second a fist appeared in front of Dajun. With a loud crash, Dajun was sent flying. As the door opened, Gangrak Bae appeared before Taek Kim and Daeyup Cha. Looking at Gangrak Bae with his extremely dangerous aura, both Taek Kim and Daeyup Cha felt the pressure. This guy actually gave them a feeling that just seeing him made them want to run. Looking at the guys in front of him, Gangrak Bae said, "Dajun shouldn't be lonely this time. He has companions to be buried with. I'll make you lie here just like last time on the mountain." But the next second, Dajun actually withstood that hit, then said, "You'd better forget what happened on the mountain as soon as possible." Seeing Dajun, Gangrak Bae couldn't help but marvel. This guy could actually take that hit in such a short time. Dajun stood up and said, "I'll finish you off in 2 minutes." Suddenly, Gangrak Bae lunged at Dajun. Just as Gangrak Bae was about to strike, Daeyup Cha intercepted him. Daeyup Cha grabbed the man's arm and executed a powerful shoulder throw. But Daeyup Cha didn't expect this guy to be so built. In just an instant, Gangrak Bae broke free from Daeyup Cha's grip. Dajun also took this opportunity to attack Gangrak Bae, but Gangrak Bae seemed to react, turning around with a punch, while Dajun ducked just in time. Then with Daeyup Cha's coordination, Dajun landed a punch on Gangrak Bae's jaw. At the same time, seeing this scene, Jungmin Han was about to rush over to help. But the next second, Taek Kim's kick came flying. Jungmin Han also reacted quickly, blocking with his arm. Seeing this, Taek Kim was somewhat surprised. Haegwang executives really can't be underestimated. Then Taek Kim kicked several times at Jungmin Han. Then another kick sent Jungmin Han flying several meters, and Jungmin Han said, "It seems you Hanguljo members are much more capable than I imagined. I originally thought you'd be weaker than Jiang Chom. Looks like we were wrong. You do have some skill." Hearing this, Taek Kim said, "Of course I can't compare to who I was back then. After that battle, we started training again after a long break. We won't lose to Haegwang anymore." With those words, Taek Kim charged at Jungmin Han. But the next second, Jong Min-han took off his jacket. Who would have thought 8-pack abs were revealed beneath the jacket? Then Jong Min-han assumed a fighting stance with his full aura unleashed. Looking at Jong Min-han before him, Taek Kim also felt this guy's aura had become even more powerfully intimidating than before. The next moment, Taek Kim kicked toward Jong Min-han, who blocked it with his muscular arm. But in that instant, danger struck Taek Kim. With a slap, Jong Min-han's arm went for Taek Kim's eyes. Then he jabbed fiercely at Taek Kim's throat. Then another attack struck Taek Kim's right neck. Then several consecutive punches hit Taek Kim hard. After several deadly attacks, Taek Kim had already fallen to his knees. Then Jong Min-han said, "Now I understand why our people wanted to recruit you, but what does that prove?" With those words, Jong Min-han kicked up at Taek Kim's chin. Da-jun, seeing Taek Kim fall, was somewhat worried and was about to shout over there, but Gangrak Bei's fist the size of a sandbag was already coming. Fortunately, Da-yup-cha appeared in time to block for Da-jun. Then, while charging at Gangrak Bei, he said, "Da-jun, focus. We don't have time to worry about others right now." The two then launched another coordinated attack on Gangrak Bei. Meanwhile, on Taek Kim's side, Jong Min-han suddenly lifted his leg, seemingly wanting to finish off Taek Kim completely. The next second, with a crash, Taek Kim caught the blow with both hands. Unable to finish off Taek Kim completely, Jong Min-han gritted his teeth. The Hangul-jo family members were indeed troublesome. Then both sides launched attacks at each other again. Both were knocked back. At the same time, on the second floor, Gaeong finished off a thug nearby and charged at Bal Li. But the next second, Bal Li slashed several wounds across her body. Then she actually grabbed Bal Li's dagger with her hand. She seized the opportunity and threw Bal Li down hard. "Just lie there and stay down." But the next second, Bal Li broke free. As the blade flashed, Gaeong's arm gained another wound. Bal Li looked at Gaeong and said, "I'm returning those exact words right back to you." Then he immediately rushed at Gaeong, but at this dangerous moment, Songbin struck, knocking the man flying to the ground with one punch. The thugs nearby saw Bal Li fall and panicked. Meanwhile, Yeongnam Choi saw Songbin suddenly run off and got angry, then called his subordinates to attack Songbin. But little did they know that Seongbin had already gone crazy. Once this seemingly calm man lost it, no one could stop him. Songbin's feet suddenly sprang into action, with several punching sounds. The thugs fell one by one. After dealing with the thugs, Seongbin put his shirt over Gaeong and said, "Gaeong, sorry I'm late. I'll quickly finish off these guys." This man was the second strongest fighter of the Hangul-jo family. Then Songbin charged fiercely at the Haegwang officials, Bal Li and Yeongnam Choi. Even under their combined attacks, he could still handle them with ease. Then he quickly knocked both back with two punches. Just as Seongbin was about to punch Yeongnam Choi again, Yeongnam Choi actually blocked the punch with his arm, then said, "I admit you punch fast, but your punches are too damn soft." With those words, Yeongnam Choi knocked Songbin back with one punch. With a crash, Songbin slammed hard into the door. Yeongnam Choi charged again with several heavy consecutive punches. He actually knocked Seongbin, along with the door, into the room. Then Yeongnam Choi strode toward Seongbin, saying, "Is this all the Hangul-jo family has?" Hearing this, Seongbin said, "Is that so?" The next second, under Bal Li's horrified expression, Songbin landed an unexpected punch to Yeongnam Choi's face, instantly knocking him unconscious. Then followed with rapid consecutive punches to the man's face. With a crash, Yeongnam Choi fell to the ground. Songbin readied himself for battle again, saying, "Next." Seeing Yeongnam Choi fall, Bal Li got angry. "You Hangul-jo family really are the biggest obstacle in our Haegwang's path." Then he threw his shirt at Seongbin, and just as Seongbin's vision was blocked, with a swish, Bal Li had already slashed a wound on Seongbin. At this moment, the two fought like killing gods, attacking each other with punches and blade strikes. The next second, Bal Li was kicked flying by Seongbin, but unexpectedly. In just an instant, Bal Li managed to stab his dagger into the left side of Seongbin's body, causing Seongbin pain. Then Yeongnam Choi showed a twisted expression. "Feels good, doesn't it?" In just that instant, you adjusted your body position, otherwise that would have been fatal. "But next time I won't miss." Then he attacked Songbin again. Meanwhile, on the third floor, Da-jun and Da-yup-cha had already launched several rounds of attacks on Gangrak Bei, but Gangrak Bei continued to give the two the illusion that he was unbeatable. But the next second, Gangrak Bei struck both of them with two punches. Both Da-jun and Da-yup-cha seemed to be getting tired. Da-jun began to feel that if they continued this stalemate, they would definitely lose. He then called to Da-yup-cha, "I want to try that move Brother Hangul-jo taught me. Can you buy me some time?" After understanding, Da-yup-cha immediately rushed at Gangrak Bei, then grabbed Gangrak Bei's arm and punched Gangrak Bei in the face. But Gangrak Bei said motionlessly, "That's it?" Then the two began trading blows to each other's faces. Seeing this, Da-jun knew that if he didn't use that move quickly, Da-yup-cha would definitely fall first. He immediately rushed at Gangrak Bei, but just as Da-jun was getting closer to Gangrak Bei, the next second, Da-jun was kicked flying. This guy could actually counterattack Da-jun while trading blows with Da-yup-cha. Da-yup-cha, now held by his collar by Gangrak Bei, seemed to be losing strength. The next second, Gangrak Bey raised his sandbag-sized fist and slammed it hard into Dayup Cha's face. Gangrak Bey stared at the fallen Dayup Cha like a beast. The next second, Dajun attacked Gangrak Bey again. But due to the size difference, another kick sent Dajun flying. Gangrak Bey looked at Dajun and said, "Don't worry, Dajun, I'll send you to join him soon." Dajun was hurt by Gangrak Bey's kick, but the next second, to Dajun's shock, a pair of hands grabbed Gangrak Bey's feet, and that person said, "Hey, Dajun, do you have time to worry about others?" Dayup Cha suddenly locked Gangrak Bey's feet. Seeing this, Dajun was deeply moved. This guy really doesn't let people down. Just as Gangrak Bey looked at Dayup Cha, about to finish him off completely, Dajun leaped up and attacked Gangrak Bey, instantly grabbing Gangrak Bey's head. A knee strike hit Gangrak Bey hard in the face. With a crash, Gangrak Bey was knocked down. Seeing this, Dayup Cha looked relieved. Dajun had gotten into the mount position and roared, "You bastard!" Time went back to a few days ago, when Hangul-jo was teaching Dajun techniques. How can a small person defeat a large person? The answer requires only 3 steps. First, get the enemy down. Second, lock the enemy's arm. And the final step is to grab his hand and use all your strength to break it. As Dajun locked Gangrak Bey's arm, Dajun kept using all his strength to bend Gangrak Bey's arm with all his might. Gangrak Bey began to feel pain in his arm, just when Dajun thought he was about to break Gangrak Bey's arm. Unexpectedly, Gangrak Bey used his other hand to support the arm being bent. Instantly, Dajun was lifted up by Gangrak Bey. But the next second, Dajun kicked Gangrak Bey in the face. Gangrak Bey's arm immediately came loose. You think you can destroy the Hangul-jo family? You can't touch anyone. As Dajun's body suddenly fell backward, Gangrak Bey's arm made a cracking sound. With the sound of bones breaking, Gangrak Bey instantly screamed in pain from this blow. Seeing this, Dayup Cha was deeply relieved. His efforts hadn't been in vain. On the other side, T. Kim, seeing the scene, couldn't help but mock Jong Min-han in front of him. But what he got in return was Jong Min-han's burst of laughter. Jong Min-han showed a disdainful smile and said, "You really don't understand Gangrak Bey at all. You're too underestimating Haegwang." With those words, he punched at T. Kim. Although I look down on him, Gangrak Bey isn't just physically imposing. Even among Haegwang officials, he's considered a monster. The next second, the arm that Dajun had broken actually lifted Dajun up, just as Dajun was surprised that he had clearly broken his arm, yet he could still. The next second, with a crash, Dajun was slammed hard to the ground by Gangrak Bey. Seeing this, T. Kim desperately wanted to help Dajun, but the next second, he was sent flying. Jong Min-han said, "You dare get distracted while fighting me? In your current situation, you still have the leisure to worry about others' lives." Meanwhile, Dajun, who was locked onto Gangrak Bey's arm, was being slammed to the ground repeatedly. He had clearly heard the sound of his arm breaking. Why could he still exert force? The next second, Dajun was lifted again, and Gangrak Bey said, "So what if it's broken? Even with a broken hand, I can tear you to pieces." Then he threw Dajun hard into the room. Dajun was hurt by this throw. This guy is really fucking crazy. Just then, Dajun noticed there seemed to be a figure by the bathtub. What appeared before his eyes was actually a tied-up person. When Dajun stood up to look at the man, wasn't this man In-hwan's missing father Bang Chul? Dajun's mind flashed back to the message In-hwan had sent before. Could he have really misunderstood him? Doesn't this prove that In-hwan isn't a spy? Meanwhile, Gangrak Bey dragged his arm as he walked in, saying, "He's just a stupid guy. If he could obediently listen like the Yongyu Kim official I brought, we'd have a lot less trouble." Hearing this, Dajun glared at Gangrak Bey and said, "Gangrak Bey, is the spy Songo?" But Gangrak Bey showed a sinister smile. "In this situation, you still have the mind to look for spies?" Then he struck at Dajun. People about to go to hell don't need to know too much. With several heavy punches to Dajun's face. This guy was still so powerful with just one hand. Then came another sandbag-sized fist, slamming hard into Dajun's head. Dajun was gradually losing ground, and just as Dajun fell, Dajun was grabbed and lifted by Gangrak Bey with one hand again. Gangrak Bey suddenly pushed Dajun toward the bathtub. With a splash, Dajun was already grabbed by Gangrak Bey and put into the water, as Dajun's hands trembled, gradually losing strength. Just when Gangrak Bey thought he had completely finished off Dajun, he then threw Dajun into the bathtub. But the next second, a hand suddenly shot out from the bathtub. Dajun again locked Gangrak Bey's other uninjured hand. Gangrak Bey was shocked. He didn't expect this kid to still be alive. The next second, he grabbed Dajun's head again. At this moment, Dajun's eyes were fierce, as if he had already resolved to die. If only ruthless people can survive in this neighborhood, then it seems Dajun has become ruthless. And ruthless people aren't just those who do bad things. Having an indomitable spirit can also make you ruthless. With the sound of another arm breaking, "Your second hand, Gangrak Bey. I'm taking it too." Gangrak Bey immediately gritted his teeth in pain. Just as Dajun saw this move starting to work on him, having been in the water for so long, he couldn't hold out much longer. He had to find another way out. But just as Dajun was thinking he needed to quickly break this arm, Gangrak Bey actually lifted his right hand that Dajun had broken earlier and slammed it hard into Dajun's forehead. This blow also caused Gangrak Bey's right hand to be injured on top of injury. Then several more punches slammed hard into Dajun's head. Dajun's eyes began to roll back. His body gradually lost strength, and he let go of Gangrak Bey's locked left hand, just as Gangrak Bey was about to deliver a fatal blow to Dajun. Byung-cheol, dragging the chair he was tied to, rammed into Gangrak Bey. After being knocked down by Byung-cheol, Gangrak Bey looked viciously at him and said, "Are you fucking looking for death? Don't want to live anymore?" Then Gangrak Bey stomped viciously on Byung-cheol's stomach, and the chair was shattered by this stomp. Then another kick went toward Byung-cheol. "You think you can help him like this? Stop fucking daydreaming. Since you're so eager to go to hell, I'll grant your wish." Just as Gangrak Bey was about to lift his foot to attack Byung-cheol again. With a smack, Gangrak Bey's forehead instantly started bleeding. Dajun held the broken wooden stick and said, "Don't multitask, you still have unfinished business." Then he threw away the wooden stick. Gangrak Bey looked at the blood on his hand, somewhat dazed. Having never bled before, he was being repeatedly struck here today. As Dajun again sent greetings to Gangrak Bey. Gangrak Bey was completely enraged. The two charged at each other again. Meanwhile, on the second floor, Bal Li looked at the blood on his dagger with a sinister smile. Gaeong looked at the injured Seongbin with worry. Seeing this, Bal Li found it laughable. "What's the use of being good at fighting? You're still being dragged down by your teammate. This life deserves to be lost. I warned you long ago that useless people should be discarded early." With those words, Seongbin attacked Bal Li. Feeling Seongbin's attack, Bal Li didn't expect this guy to still have such strong fighting power despite being so badly injured. The next second, Seongbin charged at Bal Li again. "You'll regret what you just said." The two began fighting again. Seongbin's body now had several more wounds. Bal Li began to feel that Seongbin's punches were getting faster and faster. If he didn't have concerns behind him, I'd probably have lost already. As the two were fighting, Bal Li suddenly dodged and leaped toward Gaeong nearby. The next second, Seongbin blocked in front of Gaeong and took Bal Li's several attacks, then punched Bal Li back. Bal Li said, "For such a teammate, you can actually sacrifice yourself like this." Hearing this, Seongbin said, "So what? We're members of the Hangil-jo family. For them, I can unconditionally give my life." Then Bal Li attacked Seongbin again. "If that's the case, then I'll grant your wish." Meanwhile, in the third-floor hallway, Taek Kim kept throwing punches at Jung Min-han, but they were all blocked. Jung Min-han said contemptuously, "When fighting, if you wildly throw punches like this, it usually means you're running out of stamina." Then Jung Min-han's elbow strike hit Taek Kim's injured arm. Taek Kim immediately felt pain. Then Jung Min-han threw another punch at Taek Kim. Taek Kim was gradually being dominated by Jung Min-han. The next second, another kick toward Jung Min-han. But unexpectedly, Jung Min-han caught it with both hands. Suddenly, Taek Kim's body spun 360 degrees. A kick heavily struck Jung Min-han's ribs. Jung Min-han was instantly knocked to his knees by Taek Kim. But after all, Taek Kim was already exhausted, and this blow didn't seem to cause much damage to Jung Min-han. Jung Min-han took a deep breath. The next moment, he punched Taek Kim hard in the stomach, just fall down. Then several more heavy consecutive punches completely knocked Taek Kim down. Then he stomped hard on Taek Kim's injured arm. "Let me send you off completely." Just as Jung Min-han was about to completely destroy Taek Kim's arm, Seongbin suddenly appeared and sent Jung Min-han flying. The knocked back Jung Min-han said viciously, "Damn, are all those guys on the second floor useless?" Little did he know that all the Haegwang personnel on the second floor had been beaten down. Seeing the newcomer, Dayup Cha's worried heart was relieved. The knocked back Jung Min-han gritted his teeth looking at the newcomer. Nearby, Taek Kim looked at Seongbin covered in knife wounds and asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" But Seongbin said, "I'm fine." Hearing Taek Kim mention that the guy in front of them was Seongbin, Jung Min-han was somewhat surprised. But the next second, Seongbin cut off Jung Min-han's thoughts with a punch. Blocking this blow, Jung Min-han looked fiercely at Seongbin in front of him. But the next second, Seongbin attacked Jung Min-han again, giving him no chance to react, and Jung Min-han was beaten back repeatedly. Then Jung Min-han counterattacked with a kick at Seongbin, who quickly ducked to avoid it. Then landed a heavy punch on Jung Min-han's face. Seeing this, Taek Kim couldn't help but sigh. Although he had always known Seongbin was capable, he didn't expect that even while injured, Seongbin could beat this monster Jung Min-han like this. Then Taek Kim dragged his injured body toward the knocked back Jung Min-han. But something unexpected happened. This guy actually twisted his posture to dodge just as he was about to punch. The next second, Jung Min-han kicked at Taek Kim. Fortunately, Seongbin appeared in time to block in front of him and take the blow, then punched Jung Min-han in the face. Then he called to Taek Kim, "Taek Kim, I'll handle this guy." Hearing this, Taek Kim dragged his tired body and said, "How about we do it together? I won't make the same mistake as before. Don't worry about me." But Seongbin assumed a determined posture and said, "No, this guy must be dealt with by me personally." Looking at Seongbin in front of him, Jung Min-han showed an interested expression and said, "Seongbin, is that your name? This is my first time knowing it. I didn't expect you to join the Hangil-jo family and be treated as a capable fighter. But life is truly wonderful. I didn't expect we'd meet again like this, right, you big burden?" Hearing this, T. Kim asked in surprise, Songbin, you know him? Hearing this, Songbin said, when I was very young, I encountered this guy, and he's the most unfortunate misfortune in my life. Nearby, Teek Kim looked at Seongbin in front of him. This was the first time he'd seen Seongbin this angry. Then Jongmin Han walked towards Seongbin. Now that you have some skill, you're starting to put on airs with me. Looks like I need to teach you a lesson like the old days. Seongbin also walked toward Jongmin Han. I never expected to meet you here today, but I'll thoroughly end that past here. Both charged at each other again. Meanwhile, in the third floor room, Dajun was like an unkillable cockroach, again continuing to fight with Gangrak Bae. Dajun also noticed that Gangrak Bae was starting to show problems. Indeed, breaking his arm earlier had caused damage. Otherwise, he'd really have trouble withstanding his punches now, but defeating him in his current state wasn't impossible, as long as he used what he learned during training. As Gangrak Bae's fist came at Dajun again, Dajun began to counterattack, landing several heavy punches to Gangrak Bae's stomach, then a fierce kick to Gangrak Bae's chin. Then Dajun quickly grabbed Gangrak Bae's arm. Dajun exerted force. Damn, Dajun couldn't throw him. The next moment, a hand bigger than Dajun's head grabbed Dajun's head. With a crash, Dajun was pressed to the ground and dragged by Gangrak Bae. Then Gangrak Bae grabbed Dajun, and with a fierce swing, hurled Dajun towards the bathtub. Dajun was instantly knocked senseless by the impact, his eyes rolling back as blood sprayed out. Seeing Dajun before him, Gangrak Bae mocked him. Where's all that attitude from earlier, kid? As soon as he finished speaking, Gangrak Bae landed a punch right in Dajun's stomach, causing Dajun to instantly foam at the mouth. Then came another left hook that struck Dajun square in the face. Gangrak Bae then casually walked over to the tool wall nearby. He picked up an iron fork. Raising the iron fork in his hand, he declared, I'm going to make you remember that your Hangul-jo family will always be nothing but playthings here in Haegwang territory. And Haegwang isn't just some runaway organization. We're capable of anything. Just as Gangrak Bae was about to strike, Dajun, Byung-chul, who was nearby, grabbed onto Gangrak Bae's leg and begged him to stop. But who was Gangrak Bae? With a backhand swing, he struck Byung-chul in the head. After knocking down Byung-chul, Gangrak Bae walked toward Dajun and said, Before you die, I'll make you understand one thing. In street life, fools like your Hangul-jo family who only choose to protect their own territory can never win. The iron fork then came flying toward Dajun. It's always those who take and plunder that emerge victorious. At this moment, Dajun had been beaten by Gangrak Bae to the point where he had no strength left to resist. Could it be that everything Dajun had done truly meant nothing? Suddenly, a conversation with Hangul-jo flashed through Dajun's mind. Dajun had said, I'm sorry, I put everyone in the Hangul-jo family in danger. But Hangul-jo had dismissed it, saying he thought it was something else entirely. Hangul-jo comforted Dajun, saying, If any other family member was hurt and needed help, we firmly believe that Dajun would help them without hesitation. Just like now. You're the most trustworthy person in the Hangul-jo family. Others might call you foolish for helping people you've just met. But in this street life, your life is your own. Nobody gets to dictate how you should live. After knocking Dajun down, Gangrak Bae walked toward Byung-chul. As Dajun grabbed the iron fork that was aimed at Byung-chul, he glared menacingly at Gangrak Bae before him. Then he said to Byung-chul, Don't worry, uncle, I'll definitely get you out of here. Seeing Dajun standing in front of him, Gangrak Bae was completely enraged. The next second, Dajun threw a fierce punch, striking Gangrak Bae's injured arm. Gangrak Bae's weapon immediately fell from his grasp. With unwavering determination, Dajun then swung another powerful punch, landing it squarely on Gangrak Bae's face. You, Gangrak Bae, can never underestimate the members of the Hangul-jo family. The scene shifts to 8 years ago. Seongbin was an orphan at that time, having grown up in an orphanage since childhood. Although the orphanage was very old and run down, the director still took meticulous care of them. There were friends who lived together there, and for someone who had been abandoned since birth, it was a very warm place. However, young Seongbin didn't really cherish that warmth, and one night he ran out alone. As Seongbin wondered why everyone could be so happy every day, when they were all orphans. Suddenly, Seongbin saw a bloodied figure collapse in front of him, and he encountered the person he should never have met in his life. This person was Jongmin Han. It was precisely because he met him that day that his home was destroyed. Since Seongbin witnessed his criminal acts, Jongmin Han wanted to eliminate Seongbin. But seeing that Seongbin was very young, and learning from Seongbin that he was an orphan from the orphanage, what nobody expected was that this guy actually used Seongbin as a hostage to threaten the director, demanding a huge ransom from the director to spare Seongbin's life. The director thought that giving Jongmin Han the money she had worked so hard to gather would end his violence, but instead he escalated his brutality by calling his underlings to destroy the orphanage. The director was also brutally murdered while trying to stop them. After the director's death, the orphanage was forced to close. The friends also went their separate ways to prepare for new orphanages, and this once warm home became a cold, empty place. To seek revenge, Seongbin left the orphanage. From that day on, Seongbin swore to get his revenge. The day he left the orphanage, Seongbin came to Jungmin Han's territory with a kitchen knife. He immediately charged at Jungmin Han, roaring, "Give me back my home!" But Seongbin was too small at the time. Before he could even get close, Jungmin Han stepped on him and taunted. I wondered who it was. Turns out it's that little brat from the orphanage. Jungmin Han took the kitchen knife and left a deep mark on Seongbin's forehead. Blood immediately flowed from Seongbin's forehead. After that, Seongbin went to find Jungmin Han several more times, but each time he was beaten black and blue. This is how young Seongbin lost his only home and became an orphan once again. Back to the present, Seongbin said seriously, "Jungmin Han, I'll settle the score for the orphanage with you properly." He then threw a punch at Jungmin Han. Jungmin Han blocked the strike with both hands but said mockingly, "After all these years, you really haven't improved at all. A useless guy like you needs to accept what he's lost." He then threw a punch at Seongbin, then raised his palm again to use that lethal move he had used on Taek Kim earlier. Taek Kim, who was helping Dye Up Cha to his feet, saw the scene and quickly warned Seongbin to be careful. Just as Jungmin Han's palm was about to strike Seongbin actually used his opening to dodge the attack, then landed a punch to Jungmin Han's stomach, followed by a series of angry punches. That broke through Jungmin Han's defense. "You, Jungmin Han, owe me, and I'll make you pay me back with interest." Then came several more fierce punches to Jungmin Han's stomach. Finally, an elbow strike sent Jungmin Han flying and crashing to the ground. Taek Kim and Dye Up Cha, seeing Seongbin knock down Jungmin Han, couldn't help but exclaim how awesome Seongbin was. Hearing this, Seongbin said, "No, I'm still far from it. This guy won't go down that easily." Sure enough, the fallen Jungmin Han slowly got back up. Jungmin Han then removed his jacket, revealing his terrifyingly muscular physique. "You little punk finally made me go a bit crazy. Today it's either you die or I die, you brat." The next moment, Seongbin quickly struck at Jungmin Han. Both of their fists landed on each other's faces. Then it was punch after punch, landing on each other's bodies. At this moment, the two fought like mortal enemies, wanting to completely finish off the other. The two onlookers were somewhat stunned watching the scene. These two guys could actually fight this brutally. But Seongbin, due to his injuries from the second floor, was starting to fall behind Jungmin Han in stamina. Now when Seongbin's punches hit Jungmin Han, it seemed like Jungmin Han didn't even react. Seeing this, Taek Kim became somewhat worried, considering whether he should join the fight. But Dye Up said, "This is something Seongbin must do. We can't interfere, and with your current physical condition, going would only burden him." The next second, Jungmin Han kicked towards Seongbin's face. Seongbin's punches were now starting to miss Jungmin Han, and just as Jungmin Han sensed Seongbin's stamina was failing, he used all his strength to strike fiercely at Seongbin's face. At this moment, the struck Seongbin's mind suddenly flashed back to the first day he met Hangul-jo. It was because of that day that he had a new home again. And this time, he wouldn't lose it again. Just as Jungmin Han was surprised that Seongbin hadn't fallen despite being hit, Seongbin's punch, filled with conviction, landed heavily on Jungmin Han's face. Jungmin Han was completely sent flying by Seongbin's punch and passed out. This time, Seongbin had finally protected his family. Meanwhile, on the other side, Dajun suddenly exploded into action. Throwing a punch at Gangrak Bae, Dajun knew he had to move first, no matter how freakishly strong Gangrak Bae was. Only by taking the initiative could he have even a 1 in 10,000 chance of beating him. Then came a kick aimed at Gangrak Bae's forehead. With a loud smack, Dajun's kick connected with Gangrak Bae's face, while Gangrak Bae's punch missed Dajun. Gangrak Bae's already injured forehead was now hurt even more. At this moment, the way Dajun looked at him couldn't help but remind Gangrak Bae that he too had once been a member of a runaway gang. Back then, Gangrak Bae had truly believed they were family, but it wasn't long before he was betrayed by them. From that day forward, Gangrak Bae no longer believed there was any such thing as family on the streets. And it was on that day that he met the person who would change his life. This person was the founder of Haegwang. After joining Haegwang, Gangrak Bae did many illegal things, and also gathered a bunch of guys just like him. But seeing Dajun before him still believing in the idea of family on the streets was just too ridiculous. He then delivered a whip kick toward Dajun. Dajun quickly dodged Gangrak Bae's attack, just as Dajun seized the opportunity to strike at Gangrak Bae's face. Gangrak Bae also noticed this. The next second, Gangrak Bae actually quickly moved around to Dajun's front, then grabbed Dajun's collar, and violently headbutted Dajun's forehead. The caught off guard Dajun nearly passed out. Then Gangrak Bae assumed a powerful stance, and hurled Dajun several meters away. Dajun shakily got back up. Didn't expect this guy to be so strong and still move so damn fast. The next second, Gangrak Bae charged at Dajun again. Seeing Gangrak Bae's approach, Dajun could only use those methods Hangul-jo had taught him, using the surrounding environment to block his opponent's movements. Dajun suddenly spat a huge wad of phlegm at Gangrak Bae. But the next second, Gangrak Bae actually dodged it. So next would be using the surrounding environment to find a suitable weapon. But just as Dajun looked around and realized there wasn't anything useful nearby, Gangrak Bey was already charging at Dajun. With a knee strike, he sent Dajun reeling back. The knocked back Dajun also felt pain shooting through his arm. Gangrak Bey also approached Dajun step by step, saying contemptuously, "Looks like there's a problem with your arm." Then came another kick to Dajun's face. "Looks like it's fair now." Then followed several consecutive kicks that heavily struck Dajun's body. "Since both our arms are broken, that means you have no chance of surviving." He then heavily kicked Dajun to the ground. "I'm going to beat you until you're completely paralyzed." But the next second, Dajun, like an unkillable cockroach, shakily stood up again and said, "Can you do it, you mophead? We absolutely won't lose today." Seeing Dajun before him, Gangrak Bey was instantly furious. This guy was just like an unkillable cockroach, and the way Dajun looked at him made Gangrak Bey feel sick. At this moment, Dajun was just like his own foolish former self, believing in the family behind him. The next moment, Gangrak Bey threw a punch at Dajun's face, roaring, "Don't stare at me with those disgusting eyes." Then came another kick at Dajun. At this point, Dajun's body was gradually reaching its limit. If this kick connected, he would definitely be finished. Then Dajun burst with willpower, suddenly spinning his body to dodge the kick, and using the momentum from his turn. He landed a heavy punch on Gangrak Bey's chin. Looking at Dajun before him, Gangrak Bey couldn't help but say, "Damn it, what the hell are you persisting for, you little punk? Do you think the Hangul Zhou family can last forever?" Hearing this, Dajun asked, "Do you have any trustworthy family in Haiguang?" Hearing this, Gangrak Bey said, "I don't need any." For Gangrak Bey, there were only two types of people on these streets, either the plunderers or the plundered. To him, family was all fake. But Dajun just smiled. "You don't, huh? Then you're definitely going to lose today." Just as Gangrak Bey charged at Dajun again, Dajun grabbed some water from the pool beside him and suddenly splashed it at Gangrak Bey. Gangrak Bey was confused by this move. A guy who was about to be finished was still making these pointless struggles. Then Dajun quickly ran away and picked up an iron pipe from nearby. Gangrak Bey also casually picked up a weapon nearby and said, "So this is your final trump card?" Hearing this, Dajun said, "Gangrak Bey, you entered street life before me, but you don't have brothers who are like family. Your luck is really terrible." Then Dajun raised the iron pipe and charged at Gangrak Bey. Hearing this, Gangrak Bey looked at the charging Dajun and said mockingly, "You're about to lose your life because of this." But Gangrak Bey, who had just been dismissive, was suddenly restrained by several people around him. Then Dajun said, "You, Gangrak Bey, being alone means you're destined to never win. The ones who will be victorious, who will survive, are destined to be us." Gangrak Bey immediately panicked, and Dajun's swinging iron pipe also struck heavily on Gangrak Bey's head. With a loud clang, Gangrak Bey fell to the ground. Dajun and the others, seeing the fallen Gangrak Bey, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as they were commenting that Haiguang's officers really weren't easy to deal with, they were also amazed by Dajun before them. Teak Kim looked at Dajun and said, "Dajun, your strength has improved a lot. You can defeat these Haiguang monsters by yourself. You really seem to have talent." The next second, he jokingly said to the fallen Dayup, "Dayup, you won't have a chance to make Dajun do your laundry anymore." Dajun looked at everyone and sighed, "Good thing everyone's okay." But then he remembered that Inhuan's father had really been taken and that Inhuan hadn't been lying to him. As Dajun looked around, he discovered that Inhuan's father was nowhere to be seen. He then asked Teak Kim and the others if they had seen an older man, but they said confusedly that they hadn't seen the person he was talking about. Dajun then went to the third-floor hallway, the second-floor hallway, the first-floor hallway, but he didn't see Inhuan's father anywhere. Then Dajun saw a nearby Haiguang underling who was still breathing. He grabbed him and asked, "Do you know where Byong Chil went?" The underling said, "He was just taken to the underground parking garage." Dajun was very confused. They had already dealt with all the Haiguang officers, so why was Inhuan's father taken away? The underling also said, "From the moment you guys defeated Gangrak Bey, Byong Chul was as good as dead. Haiguang isn't as simple as you think. Guys like Byong Chul who need to be persuaded. If they can't be convinced, they're definitely going to die." After learning the truth, Dajun quickly knocked out the guy in front of him, and immediately rushed toward the stairs leading to the underground parking garage. But Dajun's body was clearly near exhaustion now. Even walking was somewhat unsteady for him. The next second, with a careless misstep, his body tumbled down the stairway. At this moment, Dajun thought about his guilt over not trusting Inhuan. He still struggled to stand up. He didn't want to disappoint his friend once again. Finally, dragging his exhausted body, he made it to the parking garage. As Dajun looked around, a figure nearby caught his attention. When Dajun looked toward the car trunk, Dajun was somewhat surprised. Songho, who was supposed to be injured and hospitalized, had actually appeared here. Seeing Dajun, Songho also greeted him. Dajun then asked Songho why he was here. Songho replied that he had heard Inhuan's father was being held here, so he came, and that he felt a bit unwell, so he hadn't gone up to rescue him yet. Looking at the somewhat evasive Songho before him, Dajun understood why he had appeared here. Songho looked at Dajun and began to hypocritically ask about what had happened to Dajun's injuries. Hearing this, Dajun said he had just fought with Haiguang people. But when he finished dealing with them, he found that Inhwan's father was missing, so he came down here to look. He then tentatively asked Songo in front of him, "I just heard that Inhwan's father was brought to the parking garage. Did you see him?" Getting no useful answer, Dajun was about to turn and leave. But at this moment, Songo was also walking step by step behind Dajun. The next second, Songo spoke up, saying he couldn't contact Inhwan, so he was very worried and came here alone. And meeting Dajun made him feel much more at ease. Dajun also sensed Songo approaching from behind, and suddenly stopped. At this moment, Songo's hypocritical words finally made Dajun unable to hold back. The next second, he threw a punch at Songo. Then Dajun asked, "Songo, where exactly is Inhwan's father?" The exposed Songo said darkly, "Dajun, what are you talking about?" Then Dajun said, "You've been keeping your hands behind your back since earlier. Are you afraid I'll discover something? Or afraid I'll see the blood on your hands? Are those really the hands of someone who just arrived?" Realizing he'd been exposed, Songo finally stopped pretending. "That old man bled way too much. I thought I had hidden it well. But you still found out.